Day to be a Nashville Predators fan. Today on Stillman and Company, right here, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook Live. Thanks to Superbook Sports, live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. It is a great day to be a Predators fan. John Hines is out. Andrew Burnett will be in. And it is a great day. Ian, how are you today?
What up, what up?
Are you in a good mood today?
Always.
Are you in as good of a mood as I am today?
Probably not, but
I am in such a good mood today. Let me say this. Today, we have a free Peloton membership, like our insurance or whatever. We switched insurers because I think Blue Cross Blue Shield was trying to screw us. So we changed insurers, and our new insurers come with a free Peloton membership. So I got a Peloton membership. I was doing my Peloton workout today in my Predator shirt because I was so happy with my hockey team, and I was so happy that our long-standing nightmare of mediocrity is over. It's over. The chasing of 2017 and the President's Trophy in 2018, and those were good years. And I don't want to say that they were bad, or I don't want to, sit there and poo-poo them, because I think we can all agree that those were some great times, and it was fun to root for that team. And we can't say 2017 was a fluke, because they were good in 2016 and they were good in 2018. They won the President's Trophy. But from that point on, everything was a chase. It was chasing to get back to 2017. That's all they ever tried to do. And in 2019, they lost in the first round of the playoffs. And there were some serious issues. Then midway through the 20 season, they fired Laviolette. They brought in John Hines with no resume, except for he was awful in New Jersey. But maybe awful's a little strong. He was mediocre at best. And they brought him in. And David Poile told us, I promise he's a good coach. He'll be a good coach. You'll see. You all will see. And then, because this is kind of how the Predators operate, as soon as David Poile had that opinion, so did everybody else over there. And for year after year after year, we had to see John Hines do just enough for there to be some kind of sliver of hope at the end of every season to say, see? Remember, they lost the bubble series to that horrible Arizona team. But we said, hey, he didn't even have a full training camp. He came in the middle of the season. Then they had COVID. That's not fair. The next year, they had that turnaround after being one of the worst teams in the league. They had a good month. They got to the playoffs. They got beat. They were never going to win that series. And everybody told me that they had an identity. Even though Rod Brendamore absolutely mopped the floor with John Hines, with the way he strategized, with the way he worked the refs, with everything in that series. And everybody had to tell me, hey, the way they ended last season, this team, they're right there. Last year, we had to celebrate the fact that they barely made the playoffs. They got swept, but we had to celebrate that they barely made the playoffs. This year, people tried to convince us that we should give him credit and we should celebrate the fact that they barely missed the playoffs. And honestly, as a fan, I was so tired of it. I was so tired of these narratives that never involved the scoreboard. I was so tired with being sold a bill of goods on a coach who's never won anything and isn't going to win anything. And I was worried because Barry was David's handpicked guy. I was worried that Barry Trotz was going to, by maybe osmosis, I don't know, maybe inherit a little bit of that chasing 2018 mediocrity disease. I was optimistic that he wouldn't, but I was worried that he might. And today, that's gone. I mean, I'm just so happy. I'm so happy for two reasons. The first reason I'm happy is because I don't think John Hines is a very good coach. And I think that when you're coaching in the league for 7 or 8 years, and you never win anything, I'm sorry about your circumstances, but at some point we have to look at you in the mirror and say, you've been doing this now for the better part of a decade and you haven't won anything. So that's the first part. The second reason why I'm happy, and Caroline said this at the end of the midday show before we came on, but she talked about how, the Barry Trotz era is upon us. And it feels to me like the Barry Trotz era is going to be markedly different from the previous era for one important reason. Excuse making will not rule the day. That was the problem. Now, I can't tell you about David Poyle as a general manager in 2004 or 2008 or anything like that, because I was a fan, and honestly, I went to some of the games, but I didn't care that much. I really became a fan around 2011, 2012. And outside of the year that they let Barry Trotz go and brought in Peter Laviolette, it feels like for me it's been one excuse after another. Every time something doesn't go well, if this hadn't happened, or, if, this guy hadn't gotten hurt, or if we had done this, or if we had done that. Now, Laviolette was a no-nonsense, no-excuses kind of guy, which I liked. He would be gruff with the media, and he wouldn't really answer any questions, but I was okay with that, because when it came to winning and losing, I used to always laugh. Brooks Bratton, who used to work for the team, he would travel on all the road trips with the team. And he would send back the post-game audio from Laviolette for the radio broadcast, and so we'd have it. And, it'd be Brooks and Adam Vingan, who was with the Tennessean or the Athletic at the time, and the Predators would lose 4-1, but they would have scored like a goal in the third period. And, Brooks, again, and I love Brooks, but he was working for the team. He'd ask Laviolette after the game, Coach, I know that it wasn't the results you liked, but you scored a goal in the third period. Does that give you momentum going into tomorrow night's game? And Laviolette, no. And I used to love it because it's like there were no excuses. And with Hines and Poyle together for the last 4 years, it's been excuse after excuse after excuse. And the excuses are gone. And Ian, I'm sorry because I said that I wasn't going to throw to any cuts this segment, but I do want to throw to the John Hines cut from last season in the playoffs, because this highlights for me what I am tired of. This highlights for me what we can close the door on with what now we don't have to worry about. Are the Predators going to be able to smell the coffee? Are the Predators going to be able to look in the mirror? Are the Predators going to be able to objectively assess their strengths and weaknesses? Are the Predators as committed to being better as they were in the previous regime, as committed to finding a narrative that fit whatever it was they were trying to sell? And this was last year after they got smoked by Colorado in the first round of the playoffs. And these are the kind of excuses I'm talking about.
We were a team that, we weren't picked to be anything. We picked seventh in the Central. We were picked not to be in the playoffs. And, we formed an identity that gave us an opportunity in the regular season to be a team that, can compete for the playoffs and get into the playoffs. And I commend the guys for that.
Oh, I mean, nobody picked us. Nobody picked us to be any good, so it's okay that we got embarrassed on national TV for 4 nights in a row. It's okay that the fans that are spending their money to Bridgestone Arena are sitting there watching a team that doesn't have a chance to win. I sat there in that press conference that they had last year, Poyle and Hines, and I asked John Hines, do you think you're a couple players away with this group from being able to compete with the Colorado Avalanches of the world? And he said yes. And I knew right then and there, I was like, oh, God. And it wasn't Hines' fault because Poyle was selling the same thing. But right there, I just said, okay. And they talked a big game at that press conference. And I told the Predators, I said, that's great. You got to win. And they didn't win this season. And so it looked like when they made the announcement, think about how the Predators, it's like they did a 180. From all just the hanging on, the first-round picks for Ryan Hartman, the trades for Wayne Simmons, Mikhail Granlund with a 4-year contract, just hanging on. The Nino Niederreiter and Ryan McDonough are going to absolutely change. We're going to compete now with these guys. Oh, we got to keep Forsberg. Oh, we can't let this, and we can't. And then all of a sudden, Barry Trotz shows up, and it's like, Tanner Jeannot wants Tom Wilson money? Out. Goodbye. Get all the picks. It's like overnight, the Predators hit a common sense button. And Barry pushed that button again today. And I'm sure, I'm not making this like, this is not personal with John Hines. I'm sure he hates me, and that's okay. I like him. He is a good man. And I will continue to say that. And if I were him, I'd probably hate me too. But this is about winning and losing, baby. And he did way too much losing. And he was hired, regardless of whether or not this was fair, he was hired to take that 2017, 2018 team that fell apart at the end of 2019, that wasn't carrying their weight in 2020, and he was supposed to coach them back up there. And he never did. And so he failed. And I was worried that we were going to continue the charade for another year of having to watch the listless hockey that we've had to watch the last couple of years, that we were going to have to watch the TV broadcast littered with the parroted excuses that would come from the team, the narratives, and it's over. Today is a great day to be a Nashville Predators fan. I am a bigger Barry Trotz fan because of today. The stench of mediocrity will not be accepted any longer, and they've made the move. And I am a happy man. 615-737-1025. Let's get your phones today. We'll go to you early and often. Your reaction. Again, John Hines out. Andrew Burnett in. Now, we'll get to Andrew Burnett, but we'll also get to your phone, 615-737-1025. And the number one reason why I love this hire, or at least like the hire of Andrew Burnett, we'll get to that. 615-737-1025. It is a great day to be a Nashville Predators fan. I am so excited. I may go to the Milwaukee Admirals watch party on Thursday to support my Admirals and root for my team that has finally committed to getting rid of mediocrity. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
He knows the ins and outs of the Titans and isn't afraid to give his opinion.
Traylon Burks needs a massive offseason.
He's Jonathan Hutton of Outkick.
I don't see how they make a move without going to Ryan Tannehill.
Catch him every Monday at 10:30 on Chase and Michelle, and every Wednesday at noon on Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace. Hutton is on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
What if you could be credit card debt-free in 10 days and save as much as $1,000 a month? Loan Pronto's all-new Express Equity Line of Credit program is just what you need. Hey, Willie Donick here. You don't have to do a full home refi. You can tap a small portion of the equity you have and enjoy a super low monthly payment. With Loan Pronto's Express Equity Credit Line, you can close in 7 to 10 days. And a $50,000 loan would only cost you around $400 a month. It's that money to pay off high-interest credit cards or do a home improvement. You can access up to 90% of your home's equity, and 9 out of 10 homeowners won't even need an appraisal. Even if you did a total refi recently or just bought your home, you can tap the equity with this fast, easy program. Stop the madness and say no to 24% interest fees. Call Loan Pronto today. 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780 or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval.
Whether you're popping the question or ready to say I do, there's only one true jeweler to shop for your one true love. Hi, it's Alex Johnson from the Diamond Cellar. As a true jeweler, we not only have luxury designer collections to meet your bridal needs, but we also have talented in-house designers who can create something truly one of a kind. For more than 75 years, our expert staff has been caring for couples just like you and providing the absolute lowest prices guaranteed. Visit us at the Diamond Cellar in Green Hills. The possibilities are endless.
CMA Fest is happening in downtown Nashville, June 8th through 11th, with dozens of performances by many of today's hottest black country artists, including K. Michelle, Chapel Hart, the TSU Aristocratic Bands, Breland, and many more. Proceeds benefit the CMA Foundation and music education programs. Visit CMAfest.com for details.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today?
I think my battery's dead.
With free battery testing and charging, AutoZone is here to help.
Get in the zone, Autos. What if I need a new one?
We have the right batteries right here at America's #1 battery destination.
Get in the zone, and what if I don't know how to connect it?
No problem. We have a how-to for you at AutoZone.com.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
Anyone want to tell me what happened?
Did you miss any of today's show?
It's okay. It's fine. Don't worry.
Subscribe to the Stillman and Company podcast on Apple, Spotify, and other podcast platforms, or by going to theGameNashville.com.
All right, I'll give it a shot.
Strong opinions and a strong personality on your drive home. This is Stillman and Company on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Elliot, what are the Predators getting in their new head coach, Andrew Brunette?
Well, I think Andrew Brunette is a very smart guy. I think that's the first thing. He was really respected as a player, not the most talented player, but a guy who got a lot out of his ability and played a long time. He was a really respected player for how hard he worked, what a good teammate he was. Just, the guy rarely took a shift off. He always played like he knew that if he did take too many shifts off, it wasn't going to be good for him. When he went into coaching, he got into a really tough situation in Florida. He was an assistant coach there, and I think everybody saw how he was going to eventually be a head coach. It happened faster than everybody expected because of Joel Quenneville's suspension, the aftermath of the really awful Kyle Beats situation in Chicago. And Brunette was really thrust in there before anybody thought it was going to happen. And he coached a team that won the President's Trophy last year and got blown out in the second round by Tampa Bay. And ultimately, Florida decided to make a coaching change that looks really good right now because they're in the Stanley Cup final. But I don't think anybody looked at it as a negative on Brunette. They just felt it was too quick.
There you go. That was Elliot earlier today on the Midday Show. And that's fine. Again, the Florida Panthers, and I'm not trying to farm their land, but I thought Andrew Brunette did a pretty good job. So we've already celebrated the firing of John Hines, which we will continue to discuss throughout today's show. The second part of this is that the Predators are hiring Andrew Brunette. And it's pretty obvious to me that they had it down to two guys, Spencer Carberry and Andrew Brunette, and Carberry got hired by Washington today, which left them with one guy, and so then they turned around and hired him before Calgary could offer him that job. Now, Adam Vingan was the one who brought Carberry to our attention. He will join us for the entire 3 o'clock hour today. I meant to say that off the top. So we'll have Adam Vingan at 3 o'clock. Robbie will join us later as well because he didn't react this morning. That news wasn't out when they were on the air, so Robbie will join us, so we'll get all into all the details here. Here's why I like Andrew Brunette. Because John Hines had no resume when he was hired by the Predators. And when I say no resume, I don't mean that he didn't have a resume of jobs and places, but he didn't have a good resume. He hadn't done anything. The only thing he did was he got New Jersey to the playoffs one time. They lost in 5 games, and Taylor Hall won the Hart Trophy. Whoop-de-freaking-do. Andrew Brunette has a resume. He won the President's Trophy last year. Now, that doesn't mean that the Florida Panthers, who have a great team, are the same as this Nashville Predators team, and I've never claimed that. But regardless of whether or not you want to think, hey, is this guy, can he handle the big pressure? Last year, Joel Quenneville got fired out of nowhere, and Brunette got thrown in there, and he did a great job. He was up for the Jack Adams Award, an award that John Hines will never sniff. He was up for it. So at least he's got some positive experience on the resume. Now, I don't care about the fact that he's a former Predator. I'm sure, for the warm fuzzies of the day one ticket holders, that's a good thing. And, it kind of continues with along the lines of the Predators way from David to Barry, now to Andrew, and that's fine. I mean, I don't really care, but make of that what you will. Now, the one negative on Andrew Brunette is the DUI that he got during the All-Star break in Florida. And I don't love it, but I went back and I read it today. And I'm against DUIs, but I also know that good people get them. And we talked about that a lot when Todd Downing got his. But I went back and I read about Andrew Burnett's DUI. Basically, unless I'm mistaken, from what I read, the guy was at a restaurant, got inebriated, should not have been behind the wheel of anything, and drove a golf cart from the bar to his house, which was a half mile away. This is not the same as Todd Downing flying down 65 at 100 miles an hour in the Tesla. So, I mean, would I wish that he have not gotten that? And he'll have to address it when he gets hired about getting a DUI. But would I have preferred that? Yes. But again, my biggest fear with the DUI is that you're going to get somebody killed, right? Like, we can all agree with that. This guy was driving a golf cart. You know, I mean, I live from spots. I don't really drink alcohol that much, but I live from spots that are about a half mile away from my house. Now, I don't have a golf cart, so I wouldn't take it, and I'm not advocating to drive, you know, with whatever. But I understand the idea of like, hey, you know, we're going down to the neighborhood pub. Let's take the golf cart. Okay, let's go, whatever. That is a far cry from this Todd Downing experience.
I'm Trooper Walker. I'm with the Highway Patrol. The reason I stopped you is back on 65. I mean, I didn't get your speed because I'm in the same direction, but, I mean, you were easily over 100. I mean, you were hauling.
I wasn't trying to go 100. I'm sorry.
Okay. Where are you coming from? I know you're dressed up real nice.
Yeah, we just landed. I'm with the Titans. I got a death threat tonight.
Okay.
And the Franklin police are outside my house.
Oh, okay.
And I was trying to get home to my family.
I got you. Well, hey, Mr. Downing, you've got an odor of alcohol on your breath right now. You've been drinking tonight?
I have not.
Okay. Well, you smell like alcohol.
I'm sorry, I've not. You can check with our security.
Was there anyone else in the vehicle? Or?
Nope.
Okay. Well, hey, I'm going to have to ask you to step out, okay? Because you have been smelling alcohol, and I just need to make sure that you're safe to drive, okay?
Okay.
So this was not the same as that. Let's go to your phone. 615-737-1025. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. I'm a happy man today because the Predators have made the move. Ryan, kick us off. Thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
Hello?
Ryan, go.
Jared, you and I have been on the same topic since day one, how much you and I have hated Hines. You know my other team. You know where he came from. I told these Preds fans from day one how useless, how his pathetic system will not help a team win a Stanley Cup. And now I'm just sitting here laughing at the maniac. His useless play is finally gone, and his team can start going back in the right way it needs to go. I'm jumping up and down all day. My feet hurt from jumping up and down all day. I am so happy that he is finally gone.
I agree. I mean, I'm in a good mood. Thank you for your call, Ryan. I'm in a good mood today. And I say this because I feel like, again, it's not about Hines, the guy, right? It's about the fact that there was no end in sight from the mediocrity. He was what he was. Your first year, you lost in the play-in. So right there on that cusp of playoffs or not. The second year, you happened to be on the right side of the bubble. The third year, you were on the right side of the bubble. The fourth year, you were barely on the wrong side of the bubble. It's like, that's what you were. I don't care about systems. I care about winning. I'm going to do the system talk. Go take it up with Hal. I'm sure that you guys will have a great conversation. To me, I'm about winning. And John Hines just didn't do it. He didn't do it. He didn't develop players to my satisfaction. I think the Ellie Tolvanen thing was a humongous eye-opener for a lot of people that, again, we live in the narrative world where I felt like, you know, the last couple of years, the Predators were almost as concerned with the excuses and the narratives as they were with the actual scoreboard at times, which drove me crazy because you know I don't care about that stuff. You know I care about winning and losing. And, you know, we'd hear all these narratives and everything that would come out about, oh, no, you can't be mad at Hines about that one. You know, that's not his fault. And then when Ellie Tolvanen went to Seattle and started scoring goals and was like, yeah, you know, they didn't give me the opportunity there, it was like, well, how are you going to defend that one? And he just needed a change of scenery. That wasn't going to fly. So I think that was eye-opening. And so I am excited. I am truly excited. It's like Ryan said, he's been jumping up and down so much his feet hurt. That I appreciate. By the way, there's a guy that calls all the time, and he literally calls every day and talks to Ian for about 3 minutes at a time when we go to commercial, asking why we talk about the NFL and why we're not talking about John Hines being fired. And the guy's never been on the air. Is that right, Ian?
I don't think he's ever been on the air. That's right.
But he calls you every day wanting to know about, why are they not firing Hines?
I don't know about every day, but he's been consistent, a couple times a week. He's like, hey, you guys got A.J. Brown traded and all this kind of stuff. You guys need to get John Hines fired. So, yeah.
I mean, I hope that guy's happy today. I hope he's happy. Raymond in Franklin says, is John Hines in the top 5 of coaches that you dislike? It's not about that. I think people are going to make this into, Jared, I just was tired of the excuses for not winning. I wanted to win. It's like we talked about the Eric Dickerson cut of we want to win. We don't want to almost win. We don't want to make excuses for why we didn't win. We want to win. And with Hines, I just didn't see any future of winning with him. And I think the only reason that he would have stayed was because Barry Trotz would have thought to himself, well, I can't get the guy that I like, so I know this is going to be a young team next year. Let me run John Hines back out there, and then I'll fire him, after the season when I can get a guy that I like. But, I mean, if you listen to Elliott talk, it sounds like they had settled on Carberry and on Burnett. And then once Carberry got taken by Washington, Barry was like, this is the guy I like. Burnett had interviewed with Anaheim. He had interviewed with Columbus. He was going to interview with Calgary. And I think he probably called, Sean Henry and the brass and said, look, I mean, if I'm going to do this, I got to do this today. And they said, fine, let's do it. And so they did it. And for that, I'm happy. As far as disliking John Hines, I don't have a problem with John Hines personally. I think John Hines is a good man. And I think John Hines took a lot of tough questions over his time as coach. And a lot of those came from me. And I will say this about Andrew Burnett. I mean, I'm excited that he's going to be here. I think he's a good coach. And I'm hopeful that, winning will be in the future. But we're going to ask him hard questions too. But I totally understand if John Hines hates me. I totally get it. And I'm totally okay with it. Neil says over under on how long it will take for Jared to hate Andrew Burnett. I mean, can't get people in trouble for things they haven't done. That's a rule of the show. Alex says, what do you actually think about Andrew Burnett? Playoff disappointment with Florida and Jersey. All right, so let's get to this playoff thing because somebody said this about Spencer Carberry to me a couple weeks ago. And they said, as far as Carberry was concerned, they said, well, I mean, his team didn't win, so why would you want to hire him? And I'm like, wait a minute, so I'm only allowed to hire the guys off of teams that have won the championship? I'm not sure that totally makes a lot of sense. I mean, Mike Vrabel's team was terrible, and the Titans hired him, and he's been a pretty good coach, which takes me back to the Florida thing. I don't care about New Jersey. He wasn't the head coach, and New Jersey sucks anyways, and so I don't care about New Jersey. Back to the Florida thing. They lost to the Lightning. They lost to the Lightning. A really good team. And I'm not making excuses for him because I think if you ask him, and I don't want to speak for him, but I'm sure that he probably has some regrets that they didn't win that series. But I'm not going to look at a guy who fluffs it in the playoffs one time and say, this is not the same as losing to that Miami Heat team last night that has one good player that the Boston Celtics lost to. That Lightning team was a wagon for years. They were the defending cup. They were the two-time defending cup champions, and they lost to them. Not the end of the world. More of your phones. 615-737-1025. Again, Adam Vingan will join us at 3 o'clock. We are to your phones early and often. And I will say this, the Barry Trotz meter went up today. We'll get to that. 615-737-1025. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. They are proud supporters of the Nashville Predators. That's right. Hiller's Heatwave Heroes are keeping you from getting burned this summer. If you know your home needs an air conditioning replacement, do not wait until it breaks down. You do not want to be sweating in your home. This month, get a free UV light and free electronic air cleaner when you buy select new HVAC systems. Or get a whole home water filtration for just $59 a month. Or get a new whole home generator for just $139 a month. Call Hiller's Heatwave Heroes to save the day and visit happyhiller.com to book. Those are my guys, Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Their work is backed by the Happy You'll Be Your Services Free Guarantee. And Hiller offers real-time online booking. I know this because I use Hiller. They've been taking great care of my home for 5 years. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller! Call the Happy Face Truck today.
All the big plays.
Ball right to score! Yossi sets up Matt Duchene.
All the big stories.
For the Predators, are you holding on to what you got, or are you selling some guys off?
All in one place. We are Nashville's best sports talk. 102.5 and 106.3.
Green flag is in the air.
It may not happen that way every game.
His shot stopped.
Gotta play better, gotta coach better.
TD Tigers.
The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Interest rates may be high everywhere else, but now at Genesis Diamonds, you can get 0 interest on any purchase. 5 years, 0 interest financing with nothing down. Beautiful eternity bands, 1-carat diamond stud earrings, and more. Starting at only $50 a month. At Genesis, we are always looking for ways to do more for our amazing customers. So don't miss this. 5 years, 0 interest financing. Imagine that $6,000 designer ring is just $100 a month. We'll even finance the sales tax. Now through July 1st only. And only at Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills and Cool Springs. On approved credit, see store for details.
Calling all Nashville Sounds baseball fans. You know that 312 Pizza Company in Germantown is the best place to be before or after a Sounds game, but this season, it gets even better. Stop by 312 Pizza Company before or after any Nashville Sounds home game with your day of ticket and get a free old-style beer. That's right, you get a free old-style beer from 312 Pizza just for watching Sounds baseball, only redeemable with purchase. See you at 312 Pizza Company all baseball season long. 312 Pizza Company, a proud sponsor of your Nashville Sounds.
If you're hiring, it can feel like you're trying to find a needle in a haystack. You can hope the right person comes along, or you can just use ZipRecruiter. And now you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. In fact, ZipRecruiter has helped a lot of business owners find their needle in a haystack, like Marco, president of operations at Telly Tires and Auto Centers. Because Telly Tires has grown a lot in the last few years, Marco needed to hire everyone from a receptionist to a store manager to a head mechanic.
ZipRecruiter helps me find all the right people, even the most difficult jobs to fill. ZipRecruiter helps me keep my business running.
Take it from Marco and millions of other businesses who've used ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter can help you find the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. That's ZipRecruiter.com/RADIO. ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
94.9 The Fan is your home for Hit City.
Your Nashville Sounds are back in action tonight, starting a 6-game series in Charlotte.
Swing and a miss, strike 3. Sounds win.
Pre-game at 4:50.
On your home of Nashville Sounds baseball. 94.9 The Fan and The Fan app.
Hey Nashville, I'm Gary Smith, head coach of Nashville SC. You're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 The Game.
Now, I want you to take this with great care, this
Okay.
comparison, okay?
All right.
I'm not saying John Hines is Bill Belichick. I'm not saying that.
Up 2 o'clock today. Know what's happened now.
yeah, exactly. But what comes to mind is, what did people think of Bill Belichick as a coach in the NFL as of like the year 2000? Yeah, he's pretty good. He's okay. I
can't wait for this to come up later.
Well, no, but I know. I regret even uttering the name. There are a ton of examples of coaches who early on aren't coaching good teams. When do you get a coaching job? A lot of times you get a coaching job for a really bad team.
There you go. That was Joe last year trying to defend John Hines and invoking Bill Belichick. Oh, man, this has been a wild ride as far as the John Hines tenure. And I see a lot of texts into the text line about me being right about John Hines. Today is not about that, but we will have a segment later today in the show where we discuss that. Back to your phones. Adam Vingan at 3 o'clock. Josiah is up next here on John Hines. Thank you for calling. Go ahead, Josiah.
Hey, man, I haven't been this excited since David Poyle announced his retirement. But, man, it's a good time to be a Nashville Predators fan right now.
You know, it's funny you say that because I feel bad. Like, should I feel guilty about being so happy today?
If you feel guilty about being happy about John Hines being fired, just remember Ellie Tolvanen being scratched and then waived for nothing.
That's so true.
That alone is all it took. You should have taken to fire him. That's it.
Josiah, thank you, sir. That is a good call. I mean, here's the thing. Like, he's not wrong. Like, I am feeling at least a little guilty about being so happy about today's program. You know, because this happens in sports where people say things like, you know, hey, these people have families, and John Hines does have a family, you know, and these guys have lives, and, you know, they're people, and it's all true. It's like I got a buddy who's a doctor. He's an internist, which means he deals with like a lot of diabetic patients and smokers and things like that. And he told me last week that he doesn't worry about anybody's health except for his own health, because if he worried about the decisions that his patients made, then he'd go crazy. And I thought about that, and I kind of feel the same way, which is, look, these guys make a lot of money, man. These guys make a lot of money coaching sports. These guys make a lot of money deciding, you know, who do we put on the left wing? Who do we put up the center? You know, who's on the second line and the third line? And at the end of the day, these guys, you know, a lot of them, their kids don't have to take out loans to go to college. They live in nice houses and in nice neighborhoods. You know, it's a two-way street. And I feel the same way. You know, if something bad happened to me, you know, and I'm not talking about tragically bad, but if something bad, like if I got fired, I mean, I think there'd be a lot of people who would be very, very happy and celebrating that as probably as much as I think Predators fans are celebrating today. And I just keep thinking back to last year. You know, for me, the moment where the dam really broke on, I think, a lot of, you know, the fan feeling about the current administration was the Colorado series. And the narrative that they kept trying to push after the Colorado series about the fact that, hey, you know, nobody except for Joe Rexrode picked us to make the playoffs. And it's like, when did that become the bar? That nobody picked you to make the playoffs? I don't even remember if I had picked you to make the playoffs or not. I don't care what I thought about you in October. And I think that's when they lost a lot of people in terms of the faith in them. And so last year, it just kind of felt like it was going through the motions of them telling us, and I am speaking for, you know, the fans here, which I am one of, and not just myself, because I've always been skeptical about this administration. But I think the fans, you know, when they said, oh, no, we're going to compete and we believe and I think there was a lot of eye rolling that was going on. I mean, I remember watching that Behind the Glass TV show that they had on NHL Network, which, by the way, I hate those TV shows. The Titans are trying to do one on their website, you know, where they go behind the scenes with Rand Carthon, and it taught me absolutely nothing. I'm like, you know, if you're going to give me some behind the scenes, you got to give me a little something. But in it, you know, they had John Hines having a team meeting where he talked about we need to have expectations now. And I was like, did we not have those before? Or did we just promise everybody that we were going to have expectations? So now that's what we need to have. And so that's it just kind of felt like the fans, I don't believe the fans ever bought in for this past season, that they ever bought in emotionally to believe in the team, the coach, or the management. And that it was, again, it's like the caller said, he was really, really happy when he found out David Poyle was stepping away, and so was I. And he's really, really happy today, and so am I. I mean, that I understand. And that I get. Texter says, this is like Christmas in June. Yes. Let me say this about Barry Trotz. I think Barry Trotz has won over a lot of people. And I think this was a bit, and I don't know if he thought about that, because ultimately all that matters when you're in those positions is whether or not you win games. If Barry Trotz doesn't win any games, then this will all be forgotten and you'll want to fire him too. I remember when Vanderbilt moved on from Kevin Stallings. I know Kevin Stallings took the Pittsburgh job, but basically, the walls were caving in on Kevin Stallings' lifetime appointment to be the Vanderbilt basketball coach. And boy, you talk about the stench of mediocrity there. And so Vandy moved on from Stallings. Well, they haven't won anything since they moved on from Stallings. And so every now and then there's kind of a little talk of, hey, was that the right move? Yes, it was the right move. Just because Vandy hadn't won a lot since Stallings doesn't mean it wasn't the right move to get rid of Stallings. It was very much, in fact, the right move. And where we sit today, I think it is very much, in fact, the right move. Justin said, as soon as I heard the news, Jared, I knew I had to listen today. But I bet there were a lot of people like that were like, I got to listen at 2 o'clock today. I am pumped about moving on from Hines. I don't know anything about Andrew Burnett, but at least the Predators have movement. The staleness and problems of the past have finally been alleviated. And let me say this. I agree. It's not so much, an Andrew Burnett. I mean, he may be the greatest coach. He may be the best guy. He may be whatever. That I cannot tell you about. He did a good job in Florida. And I don't think there's anything you can say about what happened in Florida other than the fact that they lost in the second round to that wagon of a Tampa Bay Lightning team that would say that he didn't do a good job given the circumstances with the whole Joel Quenneville thing. I mean, I think I heard Elliot Friedman say today that they hired Paul Maurice during the award ceremony last year. So he was up for the Coach of the Year award, and they fired him and hired another guy? That's got to be a tough sell. I mean, the worst thing as far as Andrew Burnett's concerned is the DUI on the golf cart. That's the worst thing. And as I said, there is a difference between driving a golf cart half a mile around the neighborhood, and then there's a difference between that and, again, going 100 down 65. Somebody actually texted in, and I mean, look, I'm not an expert. Like, I'm not a forensics guy or anything like that. But somebody said, do you not think that you can get killed in a half a mile golf cart, or not some of those golf carts that can go at least 20 miles an hour? I mean, I mean, anything I guess is possible, but the idea of driving a golf cart a half a mile down the road is a lot different, in my opinion, in terms of somebody getting seriously hurt than, say, drinking and driving and hopping into a car, Todd Downing's case, specifically a Tesla, and heading down the highway. And I think those are two totally different things. Doesn't completely excuse it, and it is something that I'll have to answer for. But it's not going to keep me from hiring him as hockey coach. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. Now, there is one thing that the Predators are receiving some criticism for, which we'll get to next. Stillman and Company right here on the program. PhD weight loss. Let me tell you something. I had a buddy that was doing PhD weight loss. And when the station said, hey, PhD weight loss, would wonder if you'd like to try some of it, I said, sure. Let's give it a try. Dr. Ashley Lucas, her staff, they've got this plan. It doesn't involve pills. It doesn't involve injections. It doesn't involve any of that. It involves real food, real coaching, real structure, and I think good accountability and motivation from their coaches. Now, I started 3 weeks ago, and I am down 15 pounds. And I got to tell you, I get excited now to step on the scale. And I'm very happy about that. And, I mean, I'm going on vacation next week, and I sent a picture to my coach, and everybody who does this program gets a coach who helps hold them accountable, who's there for you to ask questions to. And I texted a picture yesterday on Memorial Day to my coach about the way I was planning my vacation next week and the encouragement that I get from PhD weight loss. I mean, it's the best. It's really great. And the program, I'm not going to say it's an easy program because that wouldn't be fair because it's not easy. But it is a simple program, and they spell it out for you. And I am really glad that the station asked me if I wanted to do this. And I was nervous about doing it because I was nervous that I wasn't going to get results. And then I'd be sitting up here talking to you about PhD weight loss. But again, in 3 weeks, I've lost 15 pounds. And it took me about a week or so. And I kind of really got into the foods and the veggies and the fats and everything else. And then I'm going to be honest with you, my energy is probably even better than it was before. So that's PhD weight loss. My guys, give them a Google, PhD weight loss. They are great. I have been having a great time using it. And, it's not just some, sign up, here they ship something. No. It's a very interpersonal program. That's PhD weight loss. Those are my guys. They've been taking great care of me. They've been doing it for some other people on the station, don't know their results. A buddy of mine who many of you know, he's had terrific success with PhD weight loss. That's PhD weight loss. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
This fall,
Andy, 24-21, your final.
The Game.
All by himself for a one-hand flush.
Gets bigger.
The doors on the board.
Your new home for Vanderbilt Athletics is 102.5 The Game and 94.9 The Fan. Football, men's basketball, baseball, and women's basketball all live here. Your home for Vanderbilt Athletics is 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and 94.9 The Fan.
Hey, it's Jared from my friends at Hiller. Hiller's Heat Wave Heroes are keeping you from getting burned this summer. If you know your home needs an air conditioning replacement, do not wait until it breaks down. You do not want to be sweating in your home. This month, get a free UV light and free electronic air cleaner when you buy select new HVAC systems. Or get a whole home water filtration for just $59 a month. Or get a new whole home generator for just $139 a month. Call Hiller's Heat Wave Heroes to save the day. Visit happyhiller.com to book.
Spring. It's a season full of new life and new opportunities to celebrate. Hi, it's Alex Johnson from the Diamond Cellar. From weddings and anniversaries to new babies and graduations, plus everything in between, there's no better place to discover the perfect gift for every occasion than the Diamond Cellar. As a true jeweler, we not only curate the finest selection of luxury jewelry from world-class designers, but we can also create something truly one-of-a-kind just for you. Visit the Diamond Cellar in Green Hills or online at diamondcellar.com.
Does this sound familiar? Did your agent provide excellent entertainment with their TikTok videos and constant social media posts about themselves while completely ignoring that you hired them to sell your home? Did they tell you how wonderful they were? How many followers they had? They probably never sold your home, but hey, they did get 15 likes on their selfies. Hashtag my clients love me. Don't let that happen to you. Google TJ Anderson Homes and see why the only likes we care about are our clients loving our service. Ask us about our prepay with TJ option and how it can save you thousands. TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. Office number 615-432-2919.
Hey, are you seeking relief? Maybe you just want to enhance your day or night. Did you know there are legal THC products available right here in Tennessee? Yeah, really. You can have legal THC products shipped directly to the comfort of your home. Yes, comfort in cannabis is only a website away. Visit greentreescompany.com. That's Green Trees with a Z, and change your life today.
Insightful discussion.
When we talk about the person that these players are.
3 goals scored in the first 5 minutes.
He wants to be the starter, day one.
Mixed with spirited debate.
Okay, but Derek, let's Professor Derek.
They are Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace. With Caroline Fenton, Willie Donick, and former NFL wide receiver Derek Mason.
We got the whole thing covered. We got it all covered.
Here.
Weekdays at 11 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. You're listening to Stillman and Company on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
You know, last week when I was putting it out there that they were talking to people and, you know, we had to get to a point where Hines knew, there were some people who wanted me to say harsher things. But I said, look, like, I haven't had a chance to speak to Barry Trotz about this yet, and I will, and I'll figure out what happened. I'm not the kind of person that likes to go off sort of without gathering all the information. But I do know that there were people who felt that way. So I don't think your piece is wrong. I don't think your position is wrong. I know there are some coaches in the league that feel that way. And, you know, I will say this. I think there were two things that kind of put the Predators in the position where they had to make the move. One, if they didn't get these guys done, they were going to go elsewhere. And two, I think some of the fact it got out that they were starting to talk to some other coaches, I think it put pressure on them even more to make a decision, because I know some coaches were getting upset.
There you go. That was Elliot Friedman on the Midday Show earlier today. And Elliot did say on the Midday Show last week that he didn't know if the Predators had interviewed other coaches, but he knew that they were looking. And I told you all Thursday when he said it, I go, well, Elliot knows that they've talked to other coaches. Like when Elliot says, I don't know if they've interviewed, knowing that they had a current coach, that was my interpretation was Elliot's telling you that they've interviewed other people. And they did. They interviewed Spencer Carberry and they interviewed Andrew Burnett. And did they interview anybody else? I don't know. But Elliot said that they interviewed those two people. And so the optics don't look very good. And as Elliot pointed out, there were coaches around the league that were not very happy with the Predators about the fact that they had John Hines under contract and they were practically cheating on him to interview these other guys. I do not care. And I'm going to tell you why I don't care about this. For two reasons. Number one, John Hines is lucky that he is not only going to get paid for this past season, but he's also going to get paid for next season. Because the Predators, despite the objection of the fans, extended John Hines' contract after that Colorado series, when, quite frankly, most people wanted him fired. In other organizations, John Hines would have been fired after the Colorado series last year. In other organizations, new general manager comes in, John Hines would have been fired the day the season was over. I was kind of expecting it when Barry Trotz came on our show on the eve of the season finale, and I asked Barry about, Hines, and he said, well, we've got to go through the evaluation process. I was like, oh, crap. They're probably going to fire him. Then I heard some rumblings that they weren't going to fire him. Then he did the press conference. Then at the press conference, Barry was like, well, I haven't made my decision yet. And I was like, oh, my God. So then I started to think that something might be up. So the optics are not pretty. But the truth is, one, this is business. And two, John Hines is lucky that he kept the job after last year. So not only did he get paid and get to coach this season, in which they could have turned things around, and they were expected to turn things around, and they did not, but he's also going to get paid for next year. And there are still other jobs out there, and nobody's going to hire John Hines to be a head coach after his failures in New Jersey and here. What I think this is I think this is other coaches talking to Elliott, and I think they're mad at Barry Trotz, and they look at him and say, wait a minute, he was part of the brotherhood. And when you're part of the brotherhood, you're supposed to take care of a fellow coach. And to immediately take the job and start having an extramarital affair with that coach is not really fair now, is it? But that's coach's business. I don't care about that. What I thought was wrong was the way they did Peter Laviolette. And I didn't hear anybody talking about this then. But, I mean, look, the Predators have 3 banners hanging in the arena. And I mean like 3 important banners. Western Conference Champion banner, President's Trophy banner, Central Division Champions banner. That's one from 17, one from 18, one from 19. You've got 3 banners. Laviolette won them all. They had a bad first half of the season in 2020. They fired Laviolette immediately. No grace given to the fact that, Peter had accomplished a lot here. No idea of, hey, let's let Peter coach his way out of this. No. They fired him. And they fired him at about 5 o'clock on a Monday. The Titans beat the Patriots in the playoffs on a Saturday. And they fired John Hines. They fired Peter Laviolette at 5 o'clock when the team returned from Anaheim on a Monday. They had a press conference for John Hines at like 9 in the morning the next day. So you mean to tell me that they hadn't interviewed John Hines? That they fired Peter at 5? They interviewed John Hines at 5:30 and they had him hired by 9 a.m. the next morning? No. And what's the old saying? If they'll cheat with you, they'll cheat on you. I mean, that's how John Hines got the job. Was he interviewed, I assume, for a position with which a man already had that job? But the man that John Hines replaced had a lot of success in this building, had a lot of success in this town. John Hines, let's face it, this is the NHL. They fire coaches left and right. John Hines was lucky to keep his job after last year. So I don't have any sympathy for how this was handled. John had to know this was coming. I mean, we talked about it every day. Basically had an every other day update on the program about here's the latest of Barry Trotz not committing to John Hines. So my guess is there's probably some coaches in the Brotherhood that are upset that Barry, a member of the Brotherhood, a member who, by the way, Barry got screwed over plenty, most notably by Washington after he won the Cup in Washington. Barry got screwed over here. Screwed over is probably a little strong, but I want to say, I think it was Darren. Somebody told me that Peter was doing Team USA hockey stuff with David. So this really isn't anything new. The Predators knew they wanted to hire. They wanted to hire 1 or 2 guys, and they went out and they did it. And John Hines gets the boot, and I'm sure there are some people that would be unhappy with that. But, I mean, if you have John Hines' results, the fact that you got 4 seasons, I think is grace. You're getting paid for a 5th. I think you should be happy with what you got. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Adam Vingan will join us for the next hour. His reaction, John Hines out, Andrew Burnett in. What's he think? Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3. The Game, 615-737-1025 is our phone number. You can watch us streaming on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live every day. And our video streaming is brought to you by Superbook. Download their app today and use the promo code THEGAME. And be sure to join us next week for the 2nd annual Music City Celebrity Golf Tournament presented by Gary Force Acura, benefiting Souls for Souls on Wednesday at the Hermitage Golf Course. Put your team together and come play with athletes, musicians, and other local celebrities to support a great cause and have loads of fun. Want to support Souls for Souls but can't play golf with us? Check out our silent auction items. Go to thegamenashville.com/golf for more info.
The offseason is in full swing, but there's no slowing down ESPN's Teron Davenport.
The flow of information.
He talks the talk.
Spears gives you that guy that can still hit the home run.
And walks the walk.
As a run blocker, he's going to murder a linebacker at the second level.
On Everything Titans, TD is on Mondays at 1, Thursdays at 3, Friday mornings at 8, and anytime on the Talkin' with TD podcast. TD is on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
Hey, Ray Jeter here with Harness. Are you looking to take ownership in a position that will support your growth and development? We are an excavation and site utilities contractor. Several things set us apart from our competition, but we take the most pride in the professional development of our people. We have multiple openings for operators, pipe layers, and laborers. Our pay and benefits are second to none, including our 401k program. Apply today at selectharness.com. Harness LLC. Build people, move dirt.
For more than a century, AM radio has evolved to meet the needs of our community. In their car, at home, or on the job, more than 80 million listeners depend on AM radio each month. AM radio is also the backbone of the emergency alert system, which keeps us safe in dangerous times. It's reliable, free, and public safety depends on it. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress we need AM radio in cars. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Now, your Game Center update.
Brought to you by the law offices of Amanda J. Gentry, the Nashville Predators will have a new coach. According to reports, the Nashville Predators will be letting go John Hines and hiring Andrew Burnett as the team's 4th ever head coach. Burnett was an original member of the expansion Preds team, scoring the first goal in franchise history. Burnett has spent the last several seasons as an assistant coach with Minnesota, Florida, and New Jersey, including leading Florida to the President's Trophy as the interim head coach. NHL insider Elliot Friedman on Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace earlier today.
He was in demand. If you didn't take him, somebody else was going to. So you've got a real up-and-coming coach here who was in demand, and I'm not surprised that you guys jumped at it rather than having him go somewhere else.
The Nashville Sounds are back in action tonight as they take on Charlotte. Hear coverage starting at 4:50 on your home of the Sounds, 94.9 The Fan. This update brought to you by the law offices of Amanda J. Gentry. I'm Ian Safar for 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
For more, follow us on Twitter at 1025 The Game or visit thegamenashville.com. Live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. WPRT FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne.
Bobby and Rex Road. Chase and Michelle.
Caroline, Willie, D-Mace.
Stillman and Company.
Nashville's best sports talk.
Crank it up.
1025 and 1063.
Crank City score. On both sides of the one big possession. Touchdown, Middle Tennessee.
The Game.
A Cromwell Media Station.
Where you have a voice.
He had a competent coaching staff. You just play terrible and you keep playing.
And we have strong opinions.
What a whiny freaking crybaby response.
This is Stillman and Company with Jared Stillman on Nashville's best sports talk, 1025 and 1063 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game. Streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook Live. Thanks to Superbook Sports Live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. I just got an email from the Titans that they've agreed to terms on a contract with Peter Skoronski and some defensive tackle named Jaleel Johnson. And at first I was wondering, like, oh my God, because there's all this text with it. I was like, what if it was they agreed to terms with DeAndre Hopkins? Woo, that would make this show a crazy show today. But the news of the day, as you heard in Ian's update, John Hines out, Andrew Burnett in. Adam Vingan joins us now on the program. Adam, your reaction?
Well, I'm not surprised that the Predators.
Where'd he go? Did we lose him? We live. See, he's talking right now. I can see him talking. He's not muted, is he? Oh, and he keeps talking. He must be saying something
Burnett,
good.
Because as you mentioned in your first.
Adam, start over again.
Oh no! Did I cut out there?
I don't know. Start over. Your reaction to the move.
The wonders of Zoom. Okay, can you hear me now?
Got you.
Okay, I'm not surprised at all by the firing of John Hines, just because Barry Trotz's lukewarm responses every time he was asked about the status of John Hines read like a big blinking neon sign that said he's not coming back. So the fact that it took this long without any sort of clarity suggested that something was afoot. And obviously today, as first reported by Kevin Weeks, the Predators are firing John Hines and hiring Andrew Burnett. And I am intrigued by the hiring of Andrew Burnett because, as you said in your first hour, Jared, the Panthers won the President's Trophy under Andrew Burnett last season. He coached 75 of their 82 games. They were an offensive juggernaut. Now, that didn't work in the playoffs. They were swept in the second round by the Tampa Bay Lightning. But he's paid his dues. He's been an assistant coach in multiple places with Minnesota, with Florida. He was the associate coach in New Jersey this season, where the Devils had their greatest regular season in their history with 112 points, if I remember that off the top of my head. So there's a lot to like about the hiring, but there are also a lot of questions just because Andrew Burnett is not a seasoned NHL head coach.
So I kind of operated the whole time, and I think you said this too, that I operated under the guise. Barry Trotz was never going to hire an experienced head coach. You know, Barry Trotz was not going to go out and hire, like, you know, how Paul Maurice replaced Andrew Burnett in Florida. He wasn't going to hire a guy with 9 years of experience as a head coach to stick on his bench, because I think Barry wants to mold the coach. So I'm not surprised that it sounds like Elliot Friedman says it was between Carberry and Burnett, and when Carberry went to Washington, then Burnett became the guy. I'm not surprised by that Barry would go with a younger coach that I think he can mold, and I'm not sure I'm against that, Adam.
No, I'm not against that at all. And And I remember talking with Robbie and Joe a few weeks ago about if the Predators were to make a coaching change, what kind of coach would I want to see the Predators hire? And to your point, Jared, I wanted to see the Predators hire an up and coming coach who could grow with the team. We've talked about Spencer Carberry a lot, as you mentioned, hired earlier today by the Washington Capitals. I had used the example of Jared Bednar, who is an extreme example because Jared Bednar has become an excellent head coach with the Colorado Avalanche and helped them win the Stanley Cup last season. But he was a proven coach in the minor leagues. I believe he won championships in both the ECHL and the AHL. He comes to the Avalanche when they're at their lowest point. Remember how bad that team was several years ago. But Jared, you and I have talked about this a lot. When we watched that 2018 playoff round, first round between the Predators and the Avalanche, although the Predators won, you could tell the Avalanche were starting to build something special. And ultimately, that's what they've done. So I think the Predators needed someone like Bednar in that position to inherit a young team that, as you said, Barry could mold him. They could all grow together. So this fits that MO, which I think is a good thing.
Do you think that Andrew Burnett got a fair shake in Florida?
Yeah, it's hard to say just because I wasn't there, but he had a fabulous season. He was a finalist for the Jack Adams Award. He finished in second place to Daryl Sutter, who, by the way, lost his job in Calgary earlier this offseason. And they decided to go with Paul Maurice, and it's worked. I mean, the Panthers are in the Stanley Cup final for the first time since 1996. And, so it's hard to say that the Panthers made a bad decision there. But I think Elliott said it on the midday show that, perhaps Brunette was thrust into that position as being a head coach maybe before he was ready, but did a great job. Went to New Jersey, worked with Lindy Ruff, one of the longest tenured coaches in NHL history. And as I said, the Devils had a fabulous season. So it felt like a good step for Brunette. Like, would the Panthers be in this position if Brunette was still the coach? Excuse me. Yeah. Would the Panthers still be in this position playing for the Stanley Cup final? I don't know. They completely changed the way they played under Maurice, but it looks like it's ultimately worked out for Burnett. So I can't say unequivocally that he got a raw deal, but I think it benefited him to maybe play that second in command in New Jersey and get that experience that way.
Elliott brought up, Adam, that he had already interviewed with Columbus. He had interviewed with somebody else, and he was going to interview with Calgary. And Calgary has Jonathan Huberdeau, whom he had coached in Florida, and I wonder if he would have gotten one of those jobs. I cannot remember where the other place Elliott said he interviewed with was.
Which
I can't remember.
Ones did you say already?
Columbus, and he was going to Calgary.
Did he interview in Anaheim?
That's it. There you go. Columbus, Anaheim, and he was going to Calgary. Do you think he would have gotten one of those jobs like that if the Predators didn't move? That then they may be without the guy they wanted to hire as coach?
Yeah, it certainly seems like it based off what Elliott was talking about, and Elliott would know. So the fact that the Predators swooped in, the timing of everything this morning, didn't seem coincidental that the Capitals hired Carberry, and then shortly thereafter, the reports came out that the Predators were hiring Brunette, considering there have been reports that the Predators interviewed Spencer Carberry. So it seems like they missed out on perhaps their first choice and then didn't want to be left holding the bag. So they swooped in and hired Brunette. But it certainly sounds like, based off what Elliott has been saying, that if Brunette would not have been hired in Nashville, that he would have gotten another job.
Do you think that the Predators really considered, and when I say the Predators, I mean Barry Trotz, because does this not feel like a different Predators to you? Like the Barry Trotz Predators as compared to the David Poile Predators? I mean, I don't think any other team in the league would have fired John Hines, in my opinion, after last season, the Colorado season, but not the David Poile Predators. And I think if David Poile was still the general manager of the Predators, that John Hines would be getting another chance. But it just feels like the Barry Trotz Predators are going to be different, Adam, than the David Poile Predators.
And I think that's a good thing because
sure.
think about where you don't even have to go back to the beginning of this season. Think about where the Predators were in terms of the fan base, where the fan base thought the team was and how they were feeling about the direction of things before David Poile made the announcement that he was retiring at the end of the season. their apathy, I think, was starting to set in, which is the worst possible thing. If a fan base is angry or frustrated, that's a good thing because it means they're feeling something. Mm-hmm. I felt like with the way the team was going before David made that announcement, I felt like fan confidence in the team was at its lowest point since I've been here in 2015. So, just think about how quickly the narrative has changed since that announcement that David Poile was retiring. Think about what they did at the trade deadline, the haul they got for Tanner Jeannot, the second round pick they got for Mikhail Granlund. All of the young players coming up and performing well in a tough spot. I think there's a lot for Predators fans to feel optimistic about. I heard a caller in your first hour say he hasn't been this excited since the Predators announced that David Poile was retiring, and I believe that was in February. So it does feel like for the first time in 4 or 5 years, the Predators have a clear, stated direction, and they're moving to that by any means necessary. Not this competitive rebuild thing, which felt half in and half out. The Predators are committed, it feels like, to doing what it takes to be good again, even if that means there are a couple of lean years in there. And I think just the fact that fans can actually say where this team is going and know where it's going is a positive that we haven't seen here in some time.
Do you think John Hynes got a fair shake?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would be very interested in hearing when Barry Trotz next speaks to reporters, which I assume will be when they formally introduce Andrew Brunette. I would love for Barry to be as transparent as possible about this evaluation process, just because it does feel like John Hynes was in limbo for a long time. And I actually can say that I know that because I was texting with John Hynes, who told me that he was in limbo for a long time. And it just feels that, perhaps this could have been done a few weeks ago. Why did it take 6 weeks? I would be very interested in hearing from Barry exactly why it took this long, because one answer is, well, these guys weren't available. Brunette wasn't available. Carberry wasn't available. Their teams have been eliminated from the postseason for 3 weeks. They haven't played since early May, like May 11th, May 12th is when the Maple Leafs and Devils were eliminated. Why could this not have happened 2 or 3 weeks ago? I would love to hear the answer to that.
Have you talked to John today?
Yes, I texted him this morning before the news broke, just to see where things were from his perspective. He got back to me before I came on and told me that he was no longer the coach, which we all know, and that he was in limbo for a long time.
That's it?
So far, that's all I've gotten from him. That doesn't mean I won't talk to him more. That's all I have for so far.
Well, I'm sure if there's any place that he would want to share his feelings, it would be this program. I mean, this has been, the John Hynes program. 615-737-1025. Get your phones in. We will get to those here with Adam Dingen. 615-737-1025. Did the Predators make the right move? Is this a good move? We'll get Adam's thoughts on it next. Stillman and Company. 615-737-1025 here on what feels like a Monday, but it's really a Tuesday because yesterday was a holiday. Hey, be sure to tune in for Sounds Baseball today at 5:05. Early start on 94.9 The Fan as the Sounds take on the Charlotte Knights, the AAA affiliate of the Chicago White Sox. Sounds Baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by 312 Pizza Company, Farm Bureau Health Plans, and Family Leisure.
102.5 and 106.3 The Game has an all-star lineup Monday through Friday. Batting first at 6 a.m., it's Robbie and Rexroad.
Yeah, you take that. You take that. Take 80% of that.
Followed by Chase and Michelle at 9.
Couldn't hit the broadside of a barn.
I need my caffeine so much.
Then it's Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace at 11.
Yep, green light, let's go.
You've got a lot of options.
He say, she say.
And bringing it home at 2, Jared Stillman for Stillman and Company.
That guy will be a good coach.
We are Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
High interest rates may be the norm everywhere else, but right now at Genesis Diamonds, we're always thinking about our customers, and we've decided to slash interest rates down to 0% for 5 years. That means you can get those diamond earrings, that designer engagement ring, or that luxury pre-owned Rolex and spread your payments over 5 whole years without paying a dime in interest. Birthdays, anniversaries, just because gifts starting as low as $35 a month, and that's with 0 down. Now through July 1st only, and only at Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills and Cool Springs. Approved credit, see store for details.
What if you could be credit card debt-free in 10 days and save as much as $1,000 a month? Loan Pronto's all-new Express Equity Line of Credit program is just what you need. Hey, Willie Donick here. You don't have to do a full home refi. You can tap a small portion of the equity you have and enjoy a super low monthly payment. With Loan Pronto's Express Equity Credit Line, you can close in 7 to 10 days. And a $50,000 loan would only cost you around $400 a month. Use that money to pay off high-interest credit cards or do a home improvement. You can access up to 90% of your home's equity, and 9 out of 10 homeowners won't even need an appraisal. Even if you did a total refi recently or just bought your home, you can tap the equity with this fast, easy program. Stop the madness and say no to 24% interest fees. Call Loan Pronto today. 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780 or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval.
Join 102.5 The Game and 94.9 The Fan on June 6th for a night of music benefiting Souls for Souls at the Night Before Charities Writers Round featuring Saving Abel. General admission is $20 with every ticket going to purchase a new pair of shoes for a child experiencing homelessness. It's happening at the all-new Ballad East next to the Gallatin Hotel in East Nashville. Lineup also includes Louis Bryce, Brian Davis, Austin Ellis, as well as Lee and Tiffany Turner. Doors open at 6 o'clock. Get your tickets now at thegamenashville.com/golf.
In this market, you'll find Fisher Investments is different than other money managers.
Different how? Aren't we all just looking for the hottest stocks?
Nope. We use diversified strategies to position our clients' portfolios for their long-term goals.
You don't just provide cookie-cutter portfolios?
No, we tailor our clients' portfolios to their goals and needs.
But you still sell investments that generate high commissions for you, right?
No, we don't sell commission-based products. We're a fiduciary, the highest standard of care for a financial advisor. It means we're obligated to act in our clients' best interest.
So when do you make more money? Only when your clients make more money?
Yep, we have one transparent management fee structured, so we do better when our clients do better.
Sounds like you really look out for your clients.
We do, because our priority is helping them achieve a comfortable retirement. That might be why most of our clients come from other money managers. Visit FisherInvestments.com to find out why investors like you switch to us. Fisher Investments. Clearly different money management.
Investments in securities involve the risk of loss.
We try to stay cool by being on social media.
I'm with it. I'm hip.
Follow us on Twitter at 1025 The Game and on Instagram at 1025 The Game Nashville.
Hey!
Oh, yeah. And like us on Facebook, too. Strong opinions and a strong personality on your drive home. This is Stillman and Company on 1025 and 1063 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
You know, I can't remember what I said last Thursday, Carolyn, but you know, I had been reporting on the weekend that Nashville was talking to people, and I couldn't pin down who it was, but I knew they were talking to people. And I think when you're at this point and, you know, your regular season's been over for about 7 weeks and you're talking to people, it's not a great sign. And I think they talked to two people. I think they talked to Burnett, and I think they talked to Spencer Carberry. If they talked to anybody else, I don't know about it at this point in time, but I do believe those were two people they talked to. Carberry was hired today as the head coach in Washington. I think Nashville was going to be very happy with either one of them. And they also knew, however, like Carberry interviewed with 4 teams. He interviewed with the Rangers, he interviewed with Anaheim, he interviewed with Washington, and he interviewed with the Predators. And Burnett interviewed with the Predators, he interviewed with Columbus, he interviewed with Anaheim. And I'm not sure if he was on his way to Calgary or he was supposed to go to Calgary, but he was going to interview the Flames too. And I think, you know, the Predators realized if they wanted one of these two guys, and like I said, I think they were happy to have both, they were going to have to do it right now because Carberry was going off the board and Burnett would too.
That was Elliot earlier today on the Midday Show. Adam Vingan is with us. Adam, do you think this is a good hire for the Predators?
I do, but I am reserving some judgment, obviously, just because the sample size of Andrew Burnett is small. He's only coached 75 games as an NHL head coach. Now, he did very well, but he had a great team to work with. You know, one thing that Predators fans, I'm sure I'm not saying anything out of turn here, but Predators fans should not expect some of the things that happened in Florida last season during the regular season to happen here. The Predators don't have Jonathan Huberdeau. They don't have Alexander Barkov. They don't have Carter Verhaeghe. They don't have that level of talent that the Panthers had last year. And the Panthers were not only the highest scoring team in the league last season, they were the highest scoring team in the salary cap era. When you look at goals per game by season since 2005, 2006, no team in the NHL has ever averaged in that span of time more goals per game a season than the Panthers did last year. They averaged over 4 goals per game. So Predators fans are not going to get that this year just because they don't have that level of talent. But I am curious to see how Brunette changes the way they play. Because under Brunette, the Panthers last season were one of the most freewheeling teams in the NHL in terms of scoring chances off the rush. They were, I think, a top 3, top 5 team in that category. So they run and gun. They were up and down the ice. You know, they played exciting hockey, and it worked during the regular season. Obviously, it did not work during the playoffs. And now Paul Maurice has the Panthers in the Stanley Cup final by being a hard forechecking team with a lot of talent. But, you know, Brunette emphasized speed and skill with the Panthers. So I imagine he'll do the same with the Predators, which could bode well for young players like Luke Evangelista or Philip Tomasino, or even some of the veteran players like Philip Forsberg and Matt Duchene, players that like to go up and down the ice. So I think you're going to see a more exciting brand of hockey under Andrew Brunette that you might have seen under John Hines.
So I am convinced that Hines was not a good coach. And I feel like people always give Hines credit for, he got the most out of these guys. But then I felt like the narrative never blamed him for not getting enough out of the other guys. And I'm not going to be hell-bent on trying to resurrect Matt Duchene and Ryan Johansson. I've been over that for 2 years. But I do wonder if this group of players with a better coach could end up with significantly better results.
It could. And look, John Hines had an interesting tenure as Predators coach, to say the least, based on when he came in, the shortened season, COVID-19, all of those things. And some of that worked against him. And I do think that in some cases, he made chicken salad out of chicken poop in some cases. But the results in terms of wins and losses and playoff wins and losses, they speak for themselves. John was unable to get the Predators, over a hump that he was hired to get them over. And, I am curious to see how a new coach can help certain players. Because, yes, we did see Philip Forsberg and Matt Duchene have career years under John Hines. But last season, they did not have those types of years before they were injured. And to me, an up-and-coming coach like Brunette, who's had a chance, but now he's going to get the full opportunity, working with some young, promising talent, like all of your favorites on the Milwaukee Admirals, Jared.
That's my team.
I think it will be really interesting to see how the younger generation of Predators players, like Evangelista, like Parsonen, like Afanasiev, like Tomasino, like Joachim Kemmel, perhaps. I will be interested to see how Brunette works with those young players. Because at this point, Matt Duchene, Ryan Johansson, Philip Forsberg, Roman Josi, they are what they are. They're in their 30s or getting close to 30 in the case of Philip Forsberg. They're not going to change dramatically. It's the younger players that I'm more interested in seeing how he works with them.
So David Poile said at the final press conference of the season that the fans need to be patient with the organization for where they're headed, which I don't disagree with. But, hockey is a very quick to fire the coach sport in every single market, it feels like, except this one. And I mean, I'm thinking about Vegas. They've been in the league for 5 years. They've had 3 coaches, and they're in the Stanley Cup final for the second time. And I say that because I do feel like maybe with Barry Trotz coming in here, the norms of which the Predators have operated with over the last handful of years are probably not going to be the same. So how long of a crack do you think Andrew Brunette gets, and how fair do you think this will be, given the fact that I don't think anybody will be picking them to win the Stanley Cup next year?
Yeah, and as you mentioned, one thing about David Poile, which, to some could be a blessing and to some others could be a curse, was that he was incredibly patient to a fault. I mean, David Poile is going to retire with, I think, 5 or 6 head coaches in his 40 years as a general manager in Washington and Nashville. I mean, he had only 3 here. Barry obviously has shown, based off the past few months with his influence, that he is willing to shake things up. But I think he understands, and I'm sure in the conversations with Andrew Burnett as it led into this hiring, that I don't think Andrew Burnett is going to have a short leash. I think Barry understands where this team is. He understands that this team is a young team. It's a rebuilding team. It's a team that may or may not make the playoffs next season. If they do, they'll probably make it as a bubble team and not really give a higher seeded team, much of a fight. As we've seen in recent years when they've made the playoffs, like when they did against Carolina and against Colorado. So, I mean, I could see Andrew Burnett being here for several years. I think, obviously, that's easier said than done. As you mentioned, Jared, NHL coaches are hired to get fired just because of how quick the trigger is. Exactly as you said with Vegas. They're in the Stanley Cup final for the second time in 6 years. They're on their 3rd coach already. They've been the team since 2017. So things can change quickly. But I can't imagine Burnett would take this job if he felt like, if I don't turn this team around in 2 years, I'm going to get fired. I do think that he's going to have a little bit of a leeway with a first-year GM as well.
Can I just tell you, I'm jealous of Vegas not because they're in the Cup final, though I'm sure that's a part of it, but it's like Vegas does all the things that I want. Like, they fire the coach, and they go after the big-name coach, and they get the big-name coach. Bruce Cassidy was a good coach, and they got him, and they get the big names. I remember you telling me to never sit there and ponder the idea of the Predators going after Jack Eichel, and Vegas did. Vegas beat the Predators to Mark Stone in 2019. The Predators hired John Hines with no resume. And when I say no resume, sometimes I think people interpret that as having like nothing on the resume. I mean, no winning on the resume. They turned around and hired Peter DeBoer. And then they fired Peter DeBoer and went out and got a better coach. I want to be like Vegas and how they operate like a big market club. And they are not a big market club. And I kind of feel like Barry's starting to get there. I look at this and I'm like, boom, puts in Andrew Burnett. Boom, takes out John Hines.
Don't forget about Alex Pietrangelo. They made that trade as well. Yes. I think it was a free agency. I can't remember if it was a free agent signing or trade. I think it was a free agent signing. But they paid top dollar for Alex Pietrangelo. You're right. Vegas has been an incredibly aggressive team. And, they missed the playoffs last year. And they could have used the excuse, hey, we missed the playoffs for the first time in our short history. We were injured up and down. But nope, they decided to make a change. And Bruce Cassidy, has them in the Stanley Cup final against another first-year coach in Paul Maurice. I think that's only happened a handful of times. But, same thing with Florida. Florida is the perfect example. Florida won the President's Trophy last year, and they basically blew up their team. Mm-hmm. They traded Jonathan Huberdeau after he had, I think, a 115-point season. They traded Mackenzie Weegar, who's a really good defenseman, and they got Matthew Tkachuk, and he's been outstanding. The Panthers and the Golden Knights are lessons in if you just miss the playoffs or you have a playoff disappointment, don't just rest on your laurels and think that it's just going to happen again next year. And both of those teams are being rewarded for that.
Adam Vingan is with us. 615-737-1025. We'll get to some of your phones. 615-737-1025. Plus, what do we think Barry Trotz and Andrew Burnett will do with the roster? We'll get to that next. Adam Vingan's with us, Stillman and Company. Big news today. Predators out John Hines, in Andrew Burnett. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Every day we are live and local.
Blown out in one game against a team that's just flat out better than you.
And your source for Nashville sports.
How many needs are you going to create for yourself this offseason?
We are Nashville's best sports talk. 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
The team at Mercedes-Benz of Music City have done it again. Here's Edwin Vickery to explain.
4-time recipient of Best of the Best. Less than 10% of the dealers in the country receive this award. How did you do it? We say culture, eat strategy for lunch, because we can strategize all we want, but unless you have the right culture and chemistry in the dealership, it will not work.
Live the dream at Mercedes-Benz of Music City, mbofmc.com.
Men, at the Tennessee Men's Clinic, our urologists and providers have been helping guys with erectile dysfunction and other sexual health issues for years. And unlike some, at the Tennessee Men's Clinic, we take a comprehensive approach to your sexual health. Our sole focus is to treat ED and related conditions. ED can be affected by a bunch of things, from hormones, prostate issues, medical conditions, and even simply aging. The fact is, most guys experience it at some point in life. If you're suffering with ED, it's extremely important to see a provider that understands how your medical conditions, hormone levels, and other factors can impact your ability to have sex. That's why you should come to the Tennessee Men's Clinic, where we have treatments that are effective in nearly 90% of cases. I can't tell you how many guys we've seen that thought their situation was hopeless, only to be wildly surprised. So give us a call today. We'll do some blood work with a T-check and a medical consult to give you the best shot at success. Call 615-208-9090 or go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. We have 2 offices, Midtown and Franklin.
Visit our website to learn more, including side effects. Treatments extra, results vary.
Buffalo Bill's Center of the West in Cody, Wyoming welcomes you as you enter Yellowstone Park's east entrance. 5 museums in one, including the fantastic Whitney Western Art Museum. Welcome to the West. Buffalo Bill's Center of the West, Cody, Wyoming.
Want to enter the construction field as a career? Make good money and finish with no debt and earn while you learn. Average starting salary over $18 an hour. First year of college averages $10,000. 4 years of our Construction Trades Academy, a total of $800 to $9,600. Applications are open with first-year scholarships available. CTANash.com. ABC Greater Tennessee Construction Trades Academy. Apply today. CTANash.com.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. Thinking about gas mileage? If your check engine light is on, it may be affecting your MPGs, but the free AutoZone Fix Finder service can help. With the most complete free warning light report backed by technician-verified fixes, you'll know what's affecting your gas mileage and more, and you don't have to drive too far to find the fix. The free AutoZone Fix Finder service is available at all 6,200 stores.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
See details at AutoZone.com.
The postseason is here. Whether it's the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs or the NBA, we have you covered on Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
What's happening in Nashville? This is Scott Van Pelt. You're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
What do you do with a guy like Ryan Johansson? Is there going to be a spot for a guy like him with all these other young guys that are coming through?
Well, yeah, you anytime you have a veteran player who can produce like Ryan, and he has in the past, this year I would say was a little bit underwhelming, and then he got injured, and there's a lot of things. As players evolve, as young players, older players have to evolve sometimes in different roles, or produce at the level. Is Ryan Johansson be able to produce at the level that he did in the absolute prime of his career? Probably not, but he can get closer to that. So that will really be on Ryan, and that'll be some hard conversations. He's going to have a great summer. He's had a couple injuries. You think about, you want Ryan to get more, maybe a little more quicker. The game's quick, so Ryan has great intelligence. He has great hands. He really does. He's great on face-offs. He does a lot of good things, but the game's getting quick. And as you get older, you got to get that half second back so you can still make those plays and use your brain like you always did. And he's had an injury that's going to stunt his ability to rehab for a good portion. So he's going to be behind the 8 ball right from the get-go.
Dave texts into our text line. Our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and Adam Vinkin is with us and says, "Amen, Jared. Now if the Predators can just get Johansson off the roster, my joy would be complete," which takes me, Adam Vinkin, to the next step of this. John Hines is out. David Poile is out. Barry Trotz is in. They got all these young guys at Milwaukee. Not all of them are going to be good NHL players. In fact, I'm probably sure 1 or 2 will be, and the rest probably won't be. So what do we think about the future of the Predators roster now that we know who the coach will be?
Yeah, that's another good question. It will be interesting to see how the Predators integrate the veteran players who were injured, Roman Yossi, Matt Duchene, Philip Forsberg, and Ryan Johansson specifically, into the lineup with all of the young kids that could have taken their jobs. And we've mentioned a few of them already in this hour. There are some cases like Philip Forsberg's probably going to be a top line winger on this team just because he's Philip Forsberg. So that may mean less of an opportunity for someone like Luke Evangelista on the top line. But, when it comes to Ryan Johansson specifically, I think Ryan Johansson's days as a top 6 forward are over. Now I could see him being a top power play guy who picks up a lot of points that way, but I don't see him as someone who's going to get a lot of responsibility at 5-on-5 in terms of a lot of minutes, tough matchups, things like that. So, I will be very curious to see once training camp starts in a few months what the Predators do there. But Brunette's and Trotz's first challenge is going to be, how do we get the older players who are coming back who have spots? Like you're not going to scratch Matt Duchene, most likely. You're not going to scratch Philip Forsberg. You're not going to scratch Roman Yossi. How do those players come in? How do they come back into the lineup with the younger players who had, for all intents and purposes, tryouts during the last 6 weeks of the season, many and did pretty well at them. So, there's going to be a lot of player movement over the next month. Free agency starts in a month. A lot of stuff always happens at the draft, which is here in a few weeks. So you'll probably get a better idea of it in the month from now. But there will be a challenge in terms of integrating the veteran injured players back into the lineup with the younger players who did a solid job in their absence.
Do you think the goalie's in play?
If the Predators are serious about rebuilding, he should be, but I don't think they're willing to go all the way there. So do I think he'll be in play? No. Do I think he should be in play? Yes.
Texter into the text line says, Adam, what are your thoughts about what Andrew Brunette offers to the team that they didn't already have? And what do you think his coaching staff will look like?
Yeah, that's a good question as well, just because, Brunette, other than being the interim head coach, has only been assistant or an associate head coach in the case of New Jersey this past season. So I can't say for sure who might be on his staff. That will require a little bit more research. In terms of what he brings that may not have been there previously, other than just a fresh voice, I think I mentioned it earlier, but I think this team's going to be more exciting to watch. I think you're going to see a lot less of the grinding, cycling style that you saw previously, and more up and down hockey, which can be both a good and bad thing. It could certainly be more exciting. You could see more goals, but it could also be more goals in your net as well as the other team's net. But I do think, based on what we saw in Florida, I do think his coaching style will be a little bit more run and gun than I think you saw under the previous coaching staff.
Here's what I wonder, which is, how much better of a team do we expect the Predators to be next season? Because we talk about all these guys, these young guys that, look what they're doing with the Admirals. Like, that's great. That's the AHL. And just because you're good in the AHL does not mean you'll be good in the NHL. See Daniel Carr, who David Poyle loved to bring up. Oh, he scored all these goals in the AHL, and he'd get up to the NHL, and he was a Scarbini. And so I look at the team, and I'm like, all right, how many of these guys are legitimate NHL players? And the reason why I look at that is because that's what Barry's looking at, because that's what Barry told me on the show, which is, hey, I know a guy played okay for 3 weeks as a second-line centerman in the NHL, but if we're looking at him competing with Nathan McKinnon, that's a different story. And I agree. And so I'm thinking about this team, and you're right. Forsberg will be on this team next year. Yossi will be on this team next year. McDonough will be on the team next year. I assume the goalie will be on the team next year. And those guys will all play the roles that they've all played. But then after that, it's like, all right, well, how many of these young guys can actually play high-end minutes in the NHL? How many of them are they going to let do that? And then after that, how many spots are going to be open where Andrew Brunette is telling Barry Trotz, well, I need somebody here, and I need somebody here, and I need somebody there, because I'm not going to put Igor Afanasyev in that spot, no matter how good he is in the AHL.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. And just because Tommy Novak produced at a high rate for a few months in the second half of the season in a higher role in the lineup, doesn't mean that he's going to do the same thing if we assume he's lower in the lineup and not getting power play time. So there is some of that. And to answer your first question, how good do we think the Predators are going to be, or how much better can they be next season? I mean, I think what you saw ultimately this season is what they probably will be next season, if that at the top, like their top gear, I think, is what you saw this year. Is a team that hangs around the playoff chase until the last week of the regular season. Maybe they make it, maybe they don't. Like I don't see a surefire playoff team, and I don't see a cellar dweller. This team's not going to be as bad as Columbus was this past season, or San Jose was this past season. But I think middle of the road is probably their ceiling right now, based off of what their roster is currently. Now, as I said, with player movement, we could see some trades or some free agent signings in the next month that could change the trajectory. But based on what I'm seeing right now, I see a team that basically finishes where they did last season. And by the way, I didn't realize this until recently. The Predators had the same exact regular season record as the Florida Panthers. Did you know that?
Is that true?
They went 42, 32, and 8. Both teams.
And so did the Florida Panthers?
Mm-hmm.
So you're telling me that if the Predators were in the Eastern Conference, they would have made the playoffs?
Well, I don't know what the tiebreaker situation would have been like, but based off their record, yes.
That's wild. Like, I don't think that the Florida Panthers are a fluke. You know what I mean? Like, I think some people are looking at it like last team in, and they were down 3-1 to Boston, and they won in Game 7, and now they're in the Cup final. And I'm like, everybody expected them before the season to be there because they have great players. It took them 3/4 of the year to gel, and now they've gelled, and now they're a really good team. That and the goalie's playing out of his mind.
Yeah, I don't think it's a fluke either. I think, as I said, they changed the way they played. They stopped playing. I mean, they still can score off the rush, but they don't rely on that anymore. They dump the puck in a lot more. They do all of that. But they have great players like Matthew Tkachuk. I mean, talk about clutch. The guy had 2 overtime winners and a buzzer beater in the Eastern Conference Final. About that trade. I remember you and I sitting down in your studio, your home studio last summer, talking about what the Predators could put together to attempt to get Matthew Tkachuk, and man, were we off. Like I think everybody was off, but man, what a brilliant trade that has worked out to be for the Panthers. But yeah, I don't think it's a fluke at all. I think they're a really good team that just took a while to get it together. It reminds me of the Predators a little bit, in 2017. I know we don't like to bring up 2017 all the time, but it is reminiscent of that in some aspects.
I just don't like bringing it up when people try to chase after it. When people are like, "Oh, this could happen again," like, let's not go there. Let's get to your phones. We'll go right to them next with Adam. 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in again. Barry Trotz has made the move. John Hines is out. And there's a lot of people that apparently are not happy with the way that the Predators treated John Hines. What Adam makes of that, we'll get to that next, and then we're right to your phones. Stillman and Company here on the program, 615-737-1025. This week's Nashville's Best Deal is Central Barbecue in Hillsborough Village. Central Barbecue is a slow-cooked Memphis-style barbecue restaurant where their motto is smoke is our sauce. Go to theGameNashville.com/deals for a half-off $30 gift card to Central Barbecue today.
When it comes to Nashville sports,
locking up Jeffrey Simmons, clearly that was a priority for them.
He knows his stuff.
A little bit good, a little bit bad.
And knows how to push the right buttons.
He's coming off an ACL tear, and he's 25 years old, so you cannot ignore that.
Join Outkick's Chad Withrow every Friday at 5 with Stillman and Company. Withrow.
What I hate more than anything is people that are phony and not true to themselves.
Is on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
The Electronic Express Memorial Day sale is ending soon. Don't miss a Hisense 65-inch 4K TV for just $349 or a GE Profile laundry pair for $599 each. Electronic Express has huge savings in every department: computers, appliances, 4K TVs, smart home, furniture and mattresses, and more. Get an Acer gaming laptop for just $599 or a Sony Bluetooth speaker for only $39. Get up to 3 years free financing throughout the entire store. Electronic Express. We make it happen.
Music City will be rocking June 23rd through the 25th with a different sound, the sound of NASCAR.
Start your engine!
The Ally 400 is back at Nashville Superspeedway, and this year, it's a night race. NASCAR in Nashville. It's guitars and fast cars under the lights. Visit NashvilleSuperspeedway.com to get your tickets for the triple header weekend, including the Ally 400, Tennessee Lottery 250, and the Rackley Roofing 200 today.
Time to save cash fast with the 1025 The Game Deal of the Week. To celebrate National Barbecue Month, get a $30 gift card to Central Barbecue for half off right now, and then see them at their newest location in Hillsboro Village. Go to theGameNashville.com/deals and get that $30 gift card for only $15. Smoke is our sauce at Central Barbecue. Get them while they last at theGameNashville.com/deals.
Imagine you're looking at a balancing scale with everything you do for other people on one side and everything you do for yourself on the other side. If it isn't balanced, maybe it's time to spend a little more time on you. And therapy is a great place to start. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist online who can help you find that balance and stick to it. Visit betterhelp.com/score to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/score.
They combine hard-hitting journalism.
Titans have actually made a move, finalizing a one-year deal.
Strong-willed opinions.
No, I disagree. No, I totally disagree with that.
And sometimes, some old man takes...
Don't want those cooked carrots that are 5 days old.
To create the perfect morning show, they are Robbie and Rex Road. Mornings from 6 to 9. Presented by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. You're listening to Stillman and Company on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
You know, last week when I was putting it out there that they were talking to people and, you know, we had to get to a point where Hines knew, there were some people who wanted me to say harsher things. But I said, look, like, I haven't had a chance to speak to Barry Trotz about this yet, and I will, and I'll figure out what happened. I'm not the kind of person that likes to go off sort of without gathering all the information. But I do know that there were people who felt that way. So I don't think your piece is wrong. I don't think your position is wrong. I know there are some coaches in the league that feel that way. And, you know, I will say this. I think there were two things that kind of put the Predators in the position where they had to make the move. One, if they didn't get these guys done, they were going to go elsewhere. And two, I think some of the fact that got out that they were starting to talk to some other coaches, I think it put pressure on them even more to make a decision, because I know some coaches were getting upset.
That was Elliot Friedman earlier today on the Midday Show. Adam Vingan with us. Do you think the Preds did John Hines dirty?
From afar, it does seem like they could have done more to, you know, could have maybe, I don't know. I was going to say respected his feelings, but this is not a therapy session. This is Sports Talk Radio. But it just feels like, to Elliot's point, if it feels like they've known for more than 6 weeks, 7 weeks, however long it's been, that he was not going to come back. So why leave him hanging for as long and interview people for a job he currently holds? It would be different if he weren't under contract. The fact that he's under contract and they were talking to people, look, it's a business, we get that. I just felt like, from afar, again, perhaps this could have been done a couple of weeks ago. Spencer Carberry and Andrew Burnett have been available, meaning their teams have been eliminated from the playoffs for 3 weeks. Now, it wasn't like they were going to immediately call them as soon as they got back in the dressing room after their team was eliminated and said, hey, Spencer, Barry Trotz, can you chat? Like, that wasn't going to happen. But it does feel like, from afar, maybe the Predators could have done better by John Hines But ultimately, it's a business. Coaching business, especially in the NHL, is especially volatile. And I'm sure John is already getting some calls from other teams for potential.
No, he is not.
I'm sure he is hearing from teams.
To do what?
Well, here's an example. Here's the funniest example. So John Hines has a connection to Chris Drury, who is the general manager of the New York Rangers. Can you imagine if Pierre Laviolette and John Hines were on the same bench?
Oh, my God. I couldn't, because you know how I feel about one of those coaches, and you know how I feel about the other coach, and I just cannot imagine it. It's like, to me, Peter's a good coach, but all the warm and fuzzies and everything else, that's just not him. Like, I will say this, and I don't know if you feel the same way I do. I think Peter is a really, really, really good guy. And I think that Peter's just not interested in showing that as a coach. And on the other hand, to me, John Hines is all bull crap and no actual coaching, no actual winning. And so I just cannot imagine John Hines on Laviolette's bench. But when you said, first of all, is Laviolette going to get the Rangers job? And secondly, that's probably a whole other can of worms. But secondly, like when you say teams calling John Hines, you mean as an assistant coach, right? Like my freak out is that somebody else is going to hire him as a head coach.
I can't say definitively. And to answer your question about the Rangers, Elliot Friedman has been reporting for the past few days that it appears that Laviolette is the front runner to be the new head coach for the New York Rangers.
Yes! That'll be great.
That'll be something to watch. But to the other question, like, for example, Michael Russo, who reports on the Minnesota Wild for The Athletic, the Wild just lost an assistant coach. They actually considered it a promotion. He was an assistant coach. Now he's coaching the head coach of their AHL team. So there's an opening on the Wild's bench. And John has a connection with Bill Guerin, who's the GM for the Wild from their Pittsburgh days, if I'm not mistaken, maybe their USA Hockey days. I don't know exactly the connection. What if John Hines was an assistant to Dean Evison? Like that could happen, But I can't say what kind of job. But I imagine that it would not shock me if John Hines, in some capacity, was behind an NHL bench next season, just based on how coaches are recycled.
Would it shock you if it was Laviolette's bench?
Oh, I don't think that's gonna happen. but that would make for some interesting small talk, considering. Hey, John, I heard you interviewed for my job while I was still employed. How does that feel? Like that. I don't know, something like that.
Adam Viggin is with us. Texter says, do you think David Poile, who is still technically the general manager, signed off on this, or do you think this was all Barry's call all the way?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that's another question that should be asked of Barry Trotz when he addresses reporters next. Because although Barry is not the official general manager until July 1st, I can't imagine David Poile is in charge, quote unquote. I'm sure he's there offering counsel to Barry like he will after the change in management. I have to imagine, since Barry is going to be the one overseeing Andrew Burnett, that he had the final call on this one. I'm sure David Poile offered his guidance, but I have to imagine that Barry had the final decision.
So here's my thing about that. David Poile, I mean, there's one thing to defend your coach, and it's another thing what David did at every turn over the last year with John Hines. It's one thing to defend your coach when people say, hey, things aren't going so great. What do you think of the coach? Hey, we see him every day. We trust the process, but we all have to be better, and that starts with the coach, and it starts with me, and it starts with – but it was almost like David went out of his way, Adam, to constantly say, no, it is not John's fault. And I felt like that kind of continued the whole time. I thought there was a chance John Hines was going to keep his job, if for no other reason, because Barry didn't want to get in right away and throw away David's guy. And the only person in the world who thinks John Hines can coach is David Poile. I mean, he gave John Hines an extension after that terrible season, or at least the terrible playoff series against the Avalanche. And so I do wonder, right? Like, what were the conversations like between David and Barry when it came to the coach? Because it did feel like to me that David Poile was really emotionally invested in John Hines. And do you think that David stood up for John, or do you think even David was like, yeah, nah, he sucks?
Well, that doesn't sound like something David Poile would ever say. But I mean, it's a good question, just because. Look, David went out on a limb with John Hines. He hired John immediately after firing Peter Laviolette. There was no interim. There was no interim tag. He is our full-on head coach the next day, and I can understand that when you make a decision like that, firing a coach who was incredibly successful for you for several years, that you're going to want to defend that guy, the guy you replaced him with, for as long as you possibly can. And I was surprised, too, when the Predators extended John Hines' contract at the end of last season. I thought they were just going to pick up his option. And, if things weren't going well, they could fire him in the middle of the season and they wouldn't be on the hook for more than what they owed him for the rest of the season. So, yeah, I was surprised when it was determined that he was going to come back under a new contract. But I'm not sure we'll ever find out unless David Poile, once his tenure is over, just kicks up his feet and starts calling everybody and telling us all the things we wish we knew while he was general manager.
Yeah, he's not going to do that. I don't
No,
think.
he's not.
I mean, I just don't see that as a possibility. One texter asks, what do you think happens with Carl Taylor now?
It wouldn't surprise me if he remained in Milwaukee. Perhaps Brunette pulls him up on his staff. I think Taylor has earned the right to, potentially graduate to the NHL. I don't think he's ready to be an NHL head coach, but I think he's more than ready to be an NHL assistant coach. So perhaps Brunette sees that as well and decides to add Carl Taylor to the Predators coaching staff. I think that would be a smart move.
Ready? What makes somebody ready for the NHL?
Yeah, that's a good question. It feels like, in a lot of cases, it feels like they have to have at least some form of NHL coaching experience or some skins on the wall in the NHL. It's hard to say, but Taylor has been a successful AHL coach. There's no doubt about that. So, if he's not, if teams don't think he's ready to be the head guy, I certainly think he's a good enough assistant coach in the NHL.
Texter says, we do not care where John Hines is going. That is a fair point. But let me say this, and I like Laviolette a lot. I think the idea of Laviolette coaching the Rangers is pretty fascinating. I think that is, again, it's not something like we're going to do segments on of is Peter Laviolette going to win the cup with the Rangers? I don't think that's something we're going to talk about. But I do think the adventure of Peter Laviolette coaching in New York, and I know he coached with the Islanders years ago, but the idea of Peter Laviolette, it is not the same. Yeah, it's not the same. It's like coaching the Brooklyn Nets. The idea
it's not the same.
Of Laviolette coaching the Rangers to me is, I think it would either he'll have them in the Cup final in a year, or it will be an unmitigated disaster. And I'm here for both.
It will be interesting to see how he handles himself in New York, because if he thought the questions he got from me were tough, it's a lot tougher there. That's for sure.
Boy, that would be so. I cannot get over. I actually heard Elliot bring that up today on the Midday Show when he was like, Laviolette might go to the Rangers. And I was like, what? The Rangers? Barry? I could see Barry coaching the Rangers. And I think Barry would be a fine coach of the Rangers. I don't know if I could see Peter coaching Rangers.
It makes sense in the fact that he's a veteran head coach, and that is a veteran team that's trying to win now. They're not rebuilding. They're trying to win now. And Peter, for most of his stops, has gotten teams like that to the final pretty quickly. It didn't happen in Washington, but it happened here, obviously, and in Philadelphia and then in Carolina.
Well, I think that Washington team was kind of old and had bad goaltending.
They were old and they were hurt. That is for sure. They had a lot of, John Carlson missed time, Tom Wilson, Nicholas Backstrom. They had a lot of injuries, to be sure. But they did not win a playoff series under Peter. So, it did not surprise me that they moved on from him.
Adam Vingan, great stuff, as always, joining us on the program as the Predators have made the coaching change. And here's the one reality that I think we've got to get to. We'll do that coming up next. Good to see you, Adam. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106.3 The Game.
1025 and 106.3 The Game has an all-star lineup Monday through Friday. Batting first at 6 a.m., it's Robbie and Rexroad.
Yeah, you take that. You take 80% of that.
Followed by Chase and Michelle at 9.
Couldn't hit the broadside of a barn.
I need my caffeine so much.
Then it's Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace at 11.
Yep, green light, let's go.
You've got a lot of options.
He say, she say. And bringing it home at 2, Jared Stillman for Stillman and Company.
That guy will be a good coach.
We are Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
What's up, everybody? Michelle Knezovic here for Superbook Sports. Bring that big bet energy this summer with Superbook Sports. Superbook Sports is the most trusted name in the sports betting world. And right now, if you use the promo code THEGAME, THEGAME, to score up to $250 with their best first bet bonus. Win or lose, they will match your first bet up to $250 with the promo code THEGAME. Simply visit superbook.com for terms and conditions or download the Superbook Tennessee app in app stores. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789.
Do you have a VA loan? In this housing market, homeowners with VA loans have access to a ton of instant cash. Hey, Willie Donick here. Do you need cash to pay off credit cards and other high-interest loans? How does a check for 80 or 90 grand sound right now? Loan Pronto is helping veterans every day get the money they need with a quick and easy zero-cost cash-out refi with zero closing costs. With a VA loan, it's really cool because you can access up to 100% of your home's value. That's 100%. Use that money to pay off credit cards, home equity lines, car loan. Consolidate all your payments into one check per month and close in 2 weeks. Most homeowners who do this end up cutting their overall monthly payments by $800. And Loan Pronto's all-digital process makes it fast and easy. They're doing loans with super low APRs, and they love working with veterans. Call now. See what your options are. Call Loan Pronto, 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780, or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval.
Want to enter the construction field as a career? Make good money and finish with no debt and earn while you learn. Average starting salary over $18 an hour. First year of college averages $10,000. 4 years of our Construction Trades Academy, a total of $800 to $9,600. Applications are open with first-year scholarships available. CTANash.com. ABC Greater Tennessee Construction Trades Academy. Apply today. CTANash.com.
Now, your Game Center update.
Brought to you by the law offices of Amanda J. Gentry, the Nashville Predators will have a new coach. According to reports, the Nashville Predators will be letting go John Hines and hiring Andrew Brunette as the team's fourth ever head coach. Brunette was an original member of the expansion Preds team, scoring the first goal in franchise history. Brunette has spent the last several seasons as an assistant coach with Minnesota, Florida, and New Jersey, including leading Florida to the President's Trophy as the interim head coach. NHL insider Elliot Friedman on Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace earlier today.
He was in demand. If you didn't take him, somebody else was going to. So you've got a real up-and-coming coach here who was in demand, and I'm not surprised that you guys jumped at it rather than having him go somewhere else.
The Nashville Sounds are back in action tonight as they take on Charlotte. Hear coverage starting at 4:50 on your home of the Sounds, 94.9 The Fan. This update brought to you by the law offices of Amanda J. Gentry. I'm Ian Safar for 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
For more, follow us on Twitter at 1025 The Game or visit thegamenashville.com. Live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. WPRT FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne. Broadcasting on Alexa.
I appreciate that.
And other smart speakers. 1025 and 106.3.
1, 2, 3. I think it was a good game. You had a couple of big plays.
The Game.
A Cromwell media station.
Where you have a voice.
He had a competent coaching staff.
You just play terrible and you keep playing.
And we have strong opinions.
What a whiny freaking crybaby response.
This is Stillman and Company with Jared Stillman on Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Thanks to Superbook Sports, live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. We have breaking news. It is now official. The Nashville Predators have fired John Hines. This is the release that dropped a few seconds ago. Predators relieved John Hines of coaching duties effective immediately, is the headline. Assistant coach Dan Lambert also relieved of duties. Look, I don't really know Dan Lambert. I know he was brought in to fix the power play under Laviolette, and I never really thought the power play was all that good, so I don't have a problem with that. According to the Predators release, quote, incoming Nashville Predators general manager Barry Trotz announced today that the team has relieved head coach John Hines and assistant coach Dan Lambert from their coaching duties effective immediately. Hines and Lambert both have 1 year remaining on their contracts with the organization, but will be permitted to seek employment elsewhere. Blah, 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 blah. Boy, this is crazy. He finished 9th in the Jack Adams Award voting last year. 9th. Andrew Burnett finished 2nd and didn't keep his job. Quote, here's Barry Trotz's quote. John Hines is a good man and a good hockey coach. Ain't good enough for you. John Hines is a good man and a good coach, Trotz said. He did an outstanding job after the trade deadline with our team, especially with our young players. And he is a well-prepared, hard-working coach who will continue to grow in the NHL. But he won't be doing that growing with us. I got to stop doing that. After our year-end meetings and some additional evaluation, it was time to change the voice and time to go in a different direction. On behalf of all of us at the Predators, we'd like to thank John for all of his hard work here and wish him and his family all the best moving forward. You know, if Barry Trotz was a politician, do you know what that really would have said? As opposed to the after the year-end meetings and some other evaluation, it would be like, after prayer, we decided it was time to move in a different direction. Like, that's what I read that. Like, oh yeah. After we spent 4 days in a completely dark room, like Aaron Rodgers, we decided it was time to move on from John Hines. I'm not sure I completely believe that, but that is the quote from Barry Trotz. Here's the quote on Dan Lambert. Quote, there is no finer person than Dan Lambert. Dan is a good teacher and a quality power play coach. He did a nice job for us, especially with all the changes to our roster last season, but I believe a new voice is needed in this space for our team, so making a change is necessary. We want to thank Dan and his family for his service and wish him well as he continues his career. And then Sean Henry has a quote in here as well. I think the one takeaway is that, we know they're going to hire Andrew Burnett, and honestly, they're probably going to do it, I would guess, tomorrow. Maybe Thursday, that they're going to officially hire Andrew Burnett as the head coach. But the fact that Lambert is the only one that they've kicked out of there, I think, is pretty eye-opening. Because it wouldn't surprise me if Andrew Burnett, like Peter Laviolette is when it comes to Kevin McCarthy, if he said, hey, I'm bringing my one guy, Jimmy. Look, I'm bringing Jimmy with me. And they said, okay. And then maybe Todd Richards and Ben Vanderklok and Dan Heinote stay. Now, I can't really do Dan Heinote because he's too positive for me. And you know me, I like telling the truth. But maybe they'll change the whole coaching staff. Maybe instead of Andrew Burnett bringing that guy with him, maybe that spot that Dan Lambert now vacates will go to Carl Taylor, the head coach of the Milwaukee Admirals. But there is the official wording from the press release of the Predators. Sean Henry says, quote, I'd like to thank John, Dan, and their families for all they did for the Predators in our community. We appreciate all their work during their respective tenures helping us and helping our team push through so many difficulties that hit us all in 2020. From the tornadoes to the pandemic and the Christmas morning explosion, they have always had our team ready to serve the community. John and Dan also guided us to 3 playoff appearances. 2 and 1 play-in. That's just me. And additionally ensured our team represented Smashville well in the 2022 NHL Stadium Series and in Bern and Prague in the 2023 Global Series. We will always be grateful for their contributions. So make of that what you will. He failed as coach of the Predators. When it comes to Barry Trotz as coach, he did a good job. He took an expansion team that had no money and constantly had changing ownership, and they punched above their weight. And they didn't win the Stanley Cup, but honestly, they probably only had one team, and that was that 2005 team. They probably only had one team that had the possibility of doing that. And so Barry Trotz's run as head coach, I think we can all agree, was a success. I know Peter Laviolette didn't win any personality awards when he was the head coach here, but I don't think you can disagree with what Laviolette did. I mean, Laviolette in 3 consecutive years hung banners. I mean, think about this. They didn't go to the playoffs in 13 and 14. They fire Trotz. They bring in Laviolette. They go to the playoffs in 15, and they had a good season for most of that year. Now, again, good seasons. Who cares about seasons? We care about the playoffs here. But they ended up losing in 6 games to the eventual Cup champion, the Blackhawks. And they really blew that series, too. That was not a very good series by the Predators. Then they get to the second round. Then they get to the Cup final, hang a banner. Then they win the President's Trophy and get to Game 7 of the second round. Then they win the Central Division and have 100-plus points, get beaten 6 games against the Dallas Stars, in which, quite frankly, they were not a very good team in. You cannot say Laviolette's tenure was not a successful tenure. It was. John Hines failed. When John Hines came in, and Ian, if you could, David Poyle, I asked him, hey, if John Hines is so good because the guys in New Jersey, Ray Shero and Tom Fitzgerald, they pumped his tires. If he was so good, then why did they fire him, and why are you bringing him in? But where the Predators were when they hired John Hines compared to where they are today are 2 totally different spots. This is what David Poyle said on the day that they hired John Hines.
David, you talked about talking to Ray Shero and Tom Fitzgerald and the endorsement they gave of John. What specifically did they like about John? And if they liked John so much, why did they make the choice to move on from John?
Well, I can't answer the second part. But on the first part, just everything. His personality, his way he gets along with people, his staff, the players, the relationships. But having said that, as John just said, he's very firm. There will be no gray area. Everybody will know what their role is. When there's things that need to be corrected, he will correct them. And I think that New Jersey's loss is our gain.
And it wasn't, because New Jersey's been better than you. In fact, they were in the second round of the playoffs this year. What happened was they brought in John Hines, fairly or unfairly, and I thought this was unfair of them, because I didn't think Laviolette was the problem when Laviolette got fired. I thought it was all the guys that got contracts after 2017. Joe Hansen, Ryan Ellis, Matt Duchene. I thought it was all of those guys, and I thought they all got fat and happy. I think that they got complacent. I think some of them got a little old. And I think it was those guys that were the problem and not the coach. But they fired Laviolette, and they pumped up John Hines like he was going to save this organization, and he didn't do any of that. And so, quite frankly, John Hines should have been fired after last season. After they got swept by the Avalanche in the playoffs, it was obvious the direction the organization needed to head. They should have fired him right then and there. Poyle should have stepped aside, and they should have started anew. They didn't do that. They gave him another chance. And he failed this year with higher expectations. And back then in 2020 when he took the job, the thought was, okay, the Predators have the players to do it because they did it in 17 and they did it in 18, and they just need the right voice. And I don't really think that that was true. But I would also contend that John Hines wasn't the right voice. And if that was the thought process then, and that's what they were selling you all the fans, then he did not do his job. And it felt like every year they just kept lowering the bar and lowering the bar and lowering the bar. And I talked about that at the end of this year, where last year we had to give them credit because, well, they barely made the playoffs and lost in 4 games, but they made the playoffs. You got to give them credit. And then this past year, they didn't make the playoffs, but they got hot with the goalie and a bunch of these young guys at the end of the season. And so you had to give him credit that they almost made the playoffs. And I'm like, dude, every year we lower the bar for this guy. It was time to start over. And so now it's official. The Predators have fired John Hines. They have released it. After the end of the year meetings, more evaluation, maybe a little prayer, whatever it may be, meditation, contemplation, substantiation, they have decided to move on from John Hines. And I couldn't be happier. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. If you want to weigh in, we will get to your phones. Plus, here's the thing you cannot take away about their new coach, Andrew Brunette, who they will hire either tomorrow or Wednesday. We'll get to that. Robbie Stanley will join us later this hour. 615-737-1025 here on the Stillman and Company program. Hey, be sure to join us on June 6th for the Night Before Charity Writers Round featuring Saving Abel and benefiting Souls for Souls. General admission is $20 with every ticket going to purchase a new pair of shoes for a child experiencing homelessness in Middle Tennessee. It's happening at the brand new venue, the Ballard East, next to the Gallatin Hotel in East Nashville. Doors open at 6 p.m. Get your tickets now at thegamenashville.com/golf.
The college football season never stops. ESPN college football analyst Trevor Manich joins Stillman and Company every Tuesday at 4:30.
They've got to do what Nick Saban in Alabama has done so successfully over the last 10 years.
Presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics on Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Interest rates may be high everywhere else, but now at Genesis Diamonds, you can get 0 interest on any purchase. 5 years, 0 interest financing with nothing down. Beautiful eternity bands, 1-carat diamond stud earrings, and more. Starting at only $50 a month. At Genesis, we are always looking for ways to do more for our amazing customers. So don't miss this. 5 years, 0 interest financing. Imagine that $6,000 designer ring is just $100 a month. We'll even finance the sales tax. Now through July 1st only. And only at Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills and Cool Springs. On approved credit, see store for details.
CMA Fest is happening in downtown Nashville, June 8th through 11th, with dozens of performances by many of today's hottest black country artists, including K. Michelle, Chapel Hart, the TSU Aristocratic Bands, Breland, and many more. Proceeds benefit the CMA Foundation and music education programs. Visit CMAFest.com for details.
For all you Marvel Studios Guardians of the Galaxy fans, the new Volume 3 soundtrack is out. In addition to an unparalleled score album from John Murphy, be sure to check out the Songs album, available digitally, on CD, and collectible vinyl, featuring hits from Space Hog, Radiohead, Flaming Lips, The Beastie Boys, Bruce Springsteen, and more. Catch Marvel Studios Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 in theaters now.
Get in on the conversation at 615-737-1025. The game text line is driven by Wilson County Hyundai. Online at wilsoncountyhyundai.com.
Want to weigh in on the conversation? It's a brain booster. Slide into our DMs. Or just text or call at 615-737-1025. Our phone line is driven by wilsoncountyhyundai.com. Strong opinions and a strong personality on your drive home. This is Stillman and Company on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Do you think he would have gotten one of those jobs like that if the Predators didn't move, that then they may be without the guy they wanted to hire as coach?
Yeah, it certainly seems like it based off what Elliott was talking about, and Elliott would know. So the fact that the Predators swooped in, the timing of everything this morning, didn't seem coincidental that the Capitals hired Carberry, and then shortly thereafter, the reports came out that the Predators were hiring Brunette, considering there have been reports that the Predators interviewed Spencer Carberry. So it seems like they missed out on perhaps their first choice and then didn't want to be left holding the bag. So they swooped in and hired Brunette. But it certainly sounds like, based off what Elliott has been saying, that if Brunette would not have been hired in Nashville, that he would have gotten another job.
There you go. That was Adam Vingan talking about Andrew Brunette. And I guess Pierre LeBrun has put it out there that there will be an announcement tomorrow morning of the Predators hiring Andrew Brunette. I'm just going to tell you, I have a pretty good feeling that that is true. And that I would be listening to the station tomorrow afternoon if I were you? Well, first of all, I'd be listening to the station every afternoon because they do have this wonderful afternoon drive program. But if I were you and I was looking for something like that, maybe a little before that absolutely wonderful, outstanding, and completely modest afternoon program comes on. I'm just saying. So the one thing I want to say about Andrew Burnett is, like, there's going to be, I mean, I'm sure there's some skepticism. A texter texts in, and our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And a texter says, can you explain who Andrew Burnett is for us casual hockey fans? Andrew Burnett was on the original Predators team that was an expansion team. He scored the first goal in Predators history, which I don't care about. So tomorrow, they're probably going to have a lot of warm and fuzzy, fluffy, fuzzy, whatever you want to call it, when it comes to, the Predator way, and I'm an original Predator, and I'm hiring an original Predator, and I don't care about that. You might, I don't. But last year, he was the assistant coach for the Florida Panthers. And what happened was Joel Quenneville was involved in a sexual assault situation in Chicago. And there was an investigation that was done by a private law firm on behalf of the NHL, and it basically found out that the team president, the general manager, the head coach, everybody who should have known knew and did nothing about a video coach sexually assaulting a minor leaguer. I know, graphic and horrific. So that comes out, and immediately people get fired in Chicago. Now, I believe the results came out on like a Wednesday, and Joel Quenneville coached on a Thursday and then was fired on a Friday or something weird like that. But it was early in the season. I want to say it was in December of last year, maybe November of last year. So Coach Q gets fired, and Andrew Burnett gets put in, and they win the President's Trophy. Then they beat Laviolette and the Capitals in the first round of the playoffs, and then they lost to the Tampa Bay Lightning in the second round, and the Lightning, the two-time defending back-to-back Cup champions, ended up going to the Cup final. And so no harm, no foul. He finished second for the Jack Adams Award, which is the Coach of the Year. And so he didn't win it, but he finished second, which is better than John Hines finishing ninth. And so he's a former Pred. He's a young guy as far as coaches are concerned. He played both in the minor leagues and in the NHL for Barry Trotz, from what I've been told. And he's got experience on the bench. And I think it's good experience. I mean, hey, he's got one crack at it, and he won a President's Trophy. Now, he had a good team. And we know that Panthers team is a wagon because they're in the Cup final now. It's a different team, but it's a different situation for Andrew Burnett to be coaching. But that's still crisis management. When you take over the start of the year like that, and you get thrust in, and you're behind the bench, and you win the President's Trophy, when people knew you had a good team, but nobody expected you to win the President's Trophy. It's pretty good. So, I mean, I'm excited, and I'm excited what we'll hear tomorrow or Thursday, whenever we have these announcements as to what they're doing. Thomas has been waiting patiently. He's up next on Andrew Burnett. Thank you for calling. What's up, Thomas?
Hey, Jerry, what's going on, man? This may be way jumping the gun here, but what do you think with Barry Trotz and now Burnett in it, head coach? What do you think that does to free agency? How good do the Preds look going in? Thanks, man.
Yeah, so I heard the Midday Show talking about this. Thank you for your call. I heard the Midday Show talking about, like, what are the expectations now for the Predators because they made this move. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, like, whoa, 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 whoa. Expectations for the Predators this season? When did we get to expectation talk? Like, I mean, the way I look at it is that we knew that some lean years might be ahead because they have to rebuild. Like, they have to try to find a way. They have to rebuild over the next couple of years and really find a big boy forward. And I don't think that's going to happen in free agency this season. Now, the one thing I do think, and I don't mean to be rude, but, I mean, I don't think Hines was a very good coach. Like, I know that the Predators spent all this time fighting against the narrative over the years that Hines wasn't a good coach, specifically coming from me. But I don't think he elevated players. Really, ever. I think he honestly held the team back. And so I think the Predators are probably as good or maybe a little bit average as far as the league's concerned, which is a playoff team, because they have a goalie who's going to win you, however many games over the course of the year. I think that they are going to have some young talent. I think that the older guys are going to score some goals. I think there's going to be a little bit of a sugar high, as is the case in the NHL when a new coach gets in. And, I don't think the Predators will be competing for the cup, but I think the Predators will be okay. But I think this is more of a long-term move than it is a short-term move. And so I don't want to get into all the talk about, oh, well, now we should expect this out of the Predators, or now we should expect this, or now we should have been. I'm not, the team still has its issues. The team still has the mess that David Poile created for it by not throwing up the white flag in 2021. The difference between throwing up the flag in 21 and 23 is significant. Because what you got for Ekholm, the big move that you made this year, you probably could have gotten for Forsberg, and you wouldn't be on the hook with him for the next 7 years with a no move. You probably could have found a way if you were willing. Now, it would have been a little painful, but if you were willing, you probably could have found a way on Duchesne after his 40-goal season. But you wanted to run it back. You wanted to give it another chance. And I'm not saying you as the fans, because I know you didn't. I'm just talking about the general consensus. Andrew texts into the text line and says, I have been over the Preds. They are too frustrating and slow-moving at everything. They move on from the GM. He says they fired the GM. Now, everybody will tell you that it was David who decided it was time for him to hang it up. Now, I've told you and I've told them that I'm not totally sure I believe that, no matter what they say. But that's their story, and they're sticking to it. They move on from the GM years after they should have. They rebuild 2 years after they should have. And, of course, they drag out firing the crappy coach forever. Whatever, Preds, you've lost my attention. Andrew, I hear your frustration. But hear me out on this. I think that's changing. I think the status quo of what has set the Predators back, overvaluing their own players like Mikael Granlund, like Ryan Johansson, like Philip Forsberg, I think overvaluing their own players is over. I think constantly chasing things that don't really exist, I think that's over. I think trying to spin a narrative after every loss about how, we could have won, I think that's over. I think making excuses for everything as opposed to saying, we screwed up, I think that's over. And I think the whole chasing after the yesteryear of 2017, I think it's over. And I'm glad it's over. And I could be wrong. Barry Trotz and Andrew Brunette could go out there and make every excuse in the book. But I don't think they're going to. So while I hear your frustrations about how David Poile should have been gone, about how John Hines probably shouldn't even have had this job, I agree. But it's over. We can all agree. It's over. Robbie Stanley. Boy, this is one thing I hate about morning shows. They did not get to react to the news because they didn't know it while they were on the air this morning. Robbie joins us next. His reaction to the move, the Hines, Brunette, where they're headed. That's next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
All the big plays. All the big stories.
If you're not ready to play in this league, you will lose. I don't care who you're playing.
All in one place. We are Nashville's best sports talk. 102.5 and 106.3.
Because I love the sport. We played the way we needed to.
Why would he make that move?
360, he slams it home. The Game. and the Game Nashville app.
What if you could be credit card debt-free in 10 days and save as much as $1,000 a month? Loan Pronto's all-new Express Equity Line of Credit program is just what you need. Hey, Willie Donick here. You don't have to do a full home refi. You can tap a small portion of the equity you have and enjoy a super low monthly payment. With Loan Pronto's Express Equity Credit Line, you can close in 7 to 10 days. And a $50,000 loan would only cost you around $400 a month. Use that money to pay off high-interest credit cards or do a home improvement. You can access up to 90% of your home's equity, and 9 out of 10 homeowners won't even need an appraisal. Even if you did a total refi recently or just bought your home, you can tap the equity with this fast, easy program. Stop the madness and say no to 24% interest fees. Call Loan Pronto today. 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780 or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval.
Bar Lines in the Omni Nashville Hotel stays true to the spirit of Music City, the perfect spot for sports and arena concert fans year-round. Savor Bar Lines Originals, the Bar Line Barbecue Burger or Midtown Mushroom Swiss Burger. Excite your taste buds with the Sobro Grinder with smoked turkey, the Boss Hog with whiskey braised pork butt, and the Angry Chicken, pickle brine fried chicken breast with honey sriracha. Attending an event downtown? Bar Lines in the Omni Nashville Hotel, open daily at 11 a.m. is a great way to kick off your afternoon or evening.
Want to enter the construction field as a career? Make good money and finish with no debt and earn while you learn. Average starting salary over $18 an hour. First year of college averages $10,000. 4 years of our Construction Trades Academy, a total of $800 to $9,600. Applications are open with first-year scholarships available. CTANash.com. ABC Greater Tennessee Construction Trades Academy. Apply today. CTANash.com.
94.9 The Fan is your home for Hit City.
Your Nashville Sounds are back in action tonight, starting a 6-game series in Charlotte.
Swing and a miss, strike 3. Sounds win.
Pre-game at 4:50.
On your home of Nashville Sounds baseball, 94.9 The Fan and The Fan app.
Hey Nashville, this is David Poyle. You're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 The Game.
It is now official. The Predators have fired John Hines, and they have it up on Instagram. Thank you, Coach Hines. And I'm like, for what? Oh, goodness gracious. It is a great day to be the Predators fan. I believe I have read your texts. And I feel like, your texts are as excited as I am about today. Robbie Stanley joins us now in the program. So as I said earlier, the fun part about morning news is it feels like you never get to react to anything. The news broke after you guys were on the air. So let's start with this, Robbie. You had been inching your meter up closer and closer as to how certain you were that Barry Trotz was going to get rid of John Hines. He did today. Your reaction?
Well, my first reaction is I haven't heard you this happy since the Titans got rid of Ken Wisenhunt, so I'm glad that you're having a nice day so far today. But I do think, look, when Barry Trotz came on our show a few weeks ago and I asked him about the status of John Hines, and he gave basically the same answer that he gave 4 weeks prior to that at the press conference about the evaluation. I mean, I texted you right after that. It was basically confirmation to me that they were looking elsewhere. I mean, at that point, the evaluation had been done. It's not like they were playing hockey games anymore. And if John Hines was the guy that Barry Trotz wanted to be the head coach of this team, I think he probably would have said so by that point. So the fact that he didn't, I thought made it pretty clear to me that they were looking elsewhere. And then to me, it was just a matter of could they find their guy? Like, were they going to be able to land whoever the target was for Barry Trotz? And look, I don't know if Andrew Burnett was his first pick. I don't know if he was his second pick behind Spencer Carberry. But obviously the Predators felt like it was time to make a change, and they've now done that. And I think it's a lot of Predators fans are very excited today as we sit here today.
Okay, what are your thoughts on Andrew Burnett?
I think that he is a good up-and-coming coach, and I think the most important thing that Andrew Burnett brings to the table is something that Barry Trotz has talked about a lot since he took over as general manager, and that he is an offensive guy. And you look at what the Florida Panthers were able to do. They're the highest scoring team in the history of the salary cap era when he was the head coach. And you look at New Jersey this year, like they were a very high scoring team. Now they also have personnel like Jack Hughes and they had, obviously Huberdeau and Barkov down there in Florida, and I'm not sure the Predators have those guys. But what stands out to me is it's kind of the modern way of playing the game, and it's an offensive-based system. You're going north-south, and you're trying to put the puck in the back of the net. And in today's NHL, scoring is up, and it's been way up the last couple of years. And I think Barry Trotz knows that ultimately, if you're going to compete and get to the point where you're competing for a Stanley Cup, you have to be able to put the puck in the back of the net. And yes, that is about personnel, but I think there are coaches and systems that are out there that accelerate offense, and I think Andrew Burnett's going to bring that to the table.
Robbie Stanley's with us. Is there any trepidation on your part for how the Panthers season ended last year with Burnett as the coach, where they won the President's Trophy, but they got swept in the second round?
Not really. I mean, look, it was a first-time head coach. I think his record was 51-18-6 in the regular season. They won the first round, and they got swept by a team that was just better than they were. I mean, the Tampa Bay Lightning, it's so difficult to do what the Lightning have done over the course of the past 4 or 5 years. So I don't have a whole lot of trepidation there. I mean, it is interesting because the way that this has gone down with John Hines is pretty similar to the way it went down with Andrew Burnett last year. He got fired like a month after the season ended, and they hired Paul Maurice after that, and the Panthers sit here today in the Stanley Cup Finals. So, I mean, look, they changed their team. Huberdeau went to Calgary. Matthew Tkachuk comes in. So it's a different team in Florida, and they play differently than they did under Andrew Burnett. But I'm not too concerned with the second-round sweep against Tampa Bay. I actually think the job that he did kind of holding that thing together, and not just holding it together, but winning the President's Trophy after the Joel Quenneville situation was pretty encouraging.
What do you make of the DUI on the golf cart? I played the audio earlier today because I find it funny of Todd Downing, telling the cop where he's clearly drunk that he had nothing to drink, or it seems to me like he was clearly drunk in the police video. I think there's a difference between driving a Tesla 100 miles an hour on I-65 at 2 in the morning as opposed to, a half a mile away from the house driving a golf cart, but it's still a DUI nonetheless. What do you make of that?
Yeah, it's not something that you want, obviously, and I'm sure that whenever Andrew Burnett is introduced to the media, that he's going to be asked about that, and I was doing some reading on that today. I agree with you. Like, to me, the Todd Downing situation and the Andrew Burnett situation are not the same. One of them is involving a car going really fast down the interstate, and the other is a golf cart on the way back from a bar at that point. So it is different, but it's DUI, and you don't want that. So certainly something that I think he's going to have to address when he takes over the job.
Robbie Stanley is with us on the program. Do you think the Predators did John Hines dirty, as Elliot Friedman said that some coaches were upset with their process?
Well, it's interesting to me that it took as long as it did, because one of the questions that I was asking as this continued to go along was, if you've reached the conclusion, if you're Barry Trotz, that John Hines is not your guy, and I think it was not that difficult to read the tea leaves and tell that was his decision, then why didn't you just go ahead and fire him? Like, that's what we talked about a lot this morning on the show before this news ever came out, of like, why have you not made the decision to fire him yet if you're talking to other coaches? So I don't think that there are a lot of coaches around the league that would love to have this situation handled the way that it was handled by Barry Trotz and the Predators. The only thing I can really come back to is Barry Trotz had his target maybe of one or two guys, and if those didn't work out, was he going to keep John Hines after that? Maybe, but that seems like kind of a strange way to operate to me. So I'm hoping that Barry Trotz will offer some clarity on that when he speaks at his press conference.
Do you think David Poile was not mentioned at all in the release, Robbie, that the Predators put out there? I wouldn't expect to hear from David Poile if there is a press conference tomorrow afternoon. I don't think he'd talk at it. But, I mean, he still is technically the general manager. And, I go back to the conversations on your show that he had with you guys where, and I said this to Adam Vingan, it's one thing, Robbie, to say, hey, it starts with all of us and it starts with me as the general manager and we all have to be better. And it's another thing with what he was doing where he was like, it's my fault, it's the player's fault, but it is not the coach's fault. I swear to you, up and down. He extended Hines when he didn't have to. I think if Poile was the general manager, they're not making this move. And I do wonder where he was and what his opinion was in all of this.
I do too. And I think, to me, this kind of signals a little bit of the changing of the guard, right? Like, I think there are a lot of Predators fans that were concerned when Barry Trotz took over the job, was like, okay, is he basically just going to be David Poile 2.0? And I think, to me, Jared, this is a sign that he's not going to be. Like, I look at this move made by Barry Trotz, and it signals to me that, you know, he wants to be more offensive. He's trying to shift and change his times with the NHL. And one of the criticisms of Barry Trotz during his time as coach here, and a lot of what we heard from fans when he was hired as general manager was, well, he's too defensive. And he's a defensive guy, and that's all he cares about, and that's what the Predators have always been, and nothing's going to change that way. And I've never really bought that with Barry Trotz. Yes, he wants to play good defense. He wants to have good goaltending. But, I mean, they were one of the highest-scoring teams in the league when he was the head coach of the Washington Capitals. When David Poile got in Paul Kariya and Peter Forsberg in Nashville, they're one of the highest-scoring teams in the league. He realizes, especially now, that you've got to score goals. So I think this move was made because he realizes that he's got a good young crop of forwards. I don't know how good, but he's got a good young crop of forwards, and he needs to get the best out of them. And I think you can point to a couple of different instances under John Hines where, and, you know, Ellie Tolvanen obviously stands out among those, where he did not get the best out of some of those young forwards. And you need to be able to score in the league moving forward. And I think Barry Trotz recognized that, and he thinks Andrew Burnett is the guy that can take him that way.
Robbie Stanley's with us. Give me a timetable, your expectations for the immediate future, and how long do you think it will take before the Predators really feel good about where they are with this new regime and their roster?
I still think it's going to take some time. Like, I think this year they're still going to be right there on the bubble. As long as they got UC Saros, they're going to be good enough to be right there on the bubble, to be a playoff team, kind of right there on the edge of it. The question is, how quickly can Andrew Burnett and this staff bring some of these young guys along? I still expect when this offseason gets all said and done that the Predators are going to have a pretty young team next year. Your Parsonens and Evangelistas and Tomasinos of the world, I think they're going to be a part of this group, and I think there are going to be some growing pains that come along with that throughout the course of an 82-game regular season in the NHL. So I would say this next season is probably going to be more of what we've seen the last couple of years, and that is them right there on that border. But I would expect after that, when you still have Forsberg on the roster and you have some of these younger guys getting a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, I think some of these guys are really talented. I would expect after that for them to start to trend upward and to get back to start competing for the division, especially when you factor in the goaltending that they're going to still have at that point, be that UC Saros or be that Yaroslav Askarov at that point.
Robbie, a couple years ago, Vanderbilt hired Clark Lee, and I don't mean to, cross sports or whatever, but Gentry Estes wrote when it happened at the Tennessean, this is a slam dunk home run for Vanderbilt. And I'm like, what? It's a standard hire. He was a top coordinator at a top school, and he's an alum of the school, but it isn't like Nick Saban would be a slam dunk home run for Vanderbilt, which we don't expect to happen. And I go to Andrew Burnett. Is this a good hire? Is this a great hire? Is this an expected type of hire? Like, how would you qualify what this hire is to the Predators?
I would probably say expected. Like, it's hard for me to say great because there's so little sample size with Andrew Burnett as a coach that I can't go to great. I will say, 51-18-6 as a head coach in Florida is nothing to sneeze at. Like, that's pretty darn good. So, albeit that's 75 games of sample size, I like that. I like the fact that he's an offensive guy. I like that wherever he goes, the power play seems to be clicking. That's a good thing. We see what a difference that can make for the Predators when they've got a good power play. So the special teams part of it is going to be interesting to monitor here. But this was an expected hire to me. When we started to float out names of who was going to be of interest to the Predators, a lot of Predators fans immediately wanted to go to Carl Taylor, and I never really bought that, although I think there's a chance that Carl Taylor is going to be on the staff next year as an assistant coach. Carberry and Burnett were really the two names that immediately came to mind. So I think this is an expected hire. I think Barry Trotz has a clear vision for the type of team that he wants to have. And now it's going to be up to him to surround him with better talent, but also up to Burnett to take what's already here and figure out a way to get the most out of some of these guys offensively, namely some of these younger guys. You have to find a way to develop them. If he can do that successfully, I think he's going to be here for a long time. If you can't, then you're talking about a different discussion this time 2-3 years down the road.
Last one for you, Robbie. It used to drive me crazy how I felt like the Predators would lose a game or lose a stretch of games or something would happen, and there was always a narrative that made it sound like it was good that we lost that game. And as soon as that narrative started to come out, the coach would parrot it, the TV broadcasters would parrot it, the whole organization would just try to sell us on something that I didn't feel like was true. And I feel like it's been that way since Laviolette left. And I don't know if that was with the head coach or if it was with the general manager, but I feel like that is going to change. And I think Barry Trotz is what's going to make that change. Do you feel the same way I do?
I do feel the same way you do, and I think that's what made the trade deadline so refreshing because it felt like really for the first time they kind of smelled the roses of where they were, and they acted on it. And I think that's why the fan base reacted so positively to it, is because they laid out a clear plan, they executed that plan, and they put themselves in a position where they've got a lot of flexibility as they move forward. I think this step taken by Barry Trotz is another step taken in that direction, and I think ultimately that's going to be a very, very good thing for this franchise.
Robbie Stanley, great stuff. Appreciate your time, bud.
Thanks, brother.
Yep, we will see Robbie tomorrow morning, and they will react on Robbie and Joe. And I'm sure Joe will say some crazy things like the time that he compared John Hines to Bill Belichick.
Even though he disclaimed right from the beginning he is not doing that.
Well, wait, you take it up for Joe right here?
I got to take up for Joe a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, all right, let's play the cut. And you guys can decide if Joe Rexrode. See, I think the disclaimer is like when somebody says no offense. Like no offense.
So
but.
You think he was actually comparing Hines to Belichick?
Well, let's play the cut.
Now, I want you to take this with great care. This comparison, okay?
All right.
I'm not saying John Hines is Bill Belichick. I'm not saying that.
Up 2:00 today. Know what's happened now?
yeah, exactly. But what comes to mind is, what did people think of Bill Belichick as a coach in the NFL as of like the year 2000? Yeah, he's pretty good. He's okay. I'm not again.
I can't wait for this to come up later.
Well, no, but I know. I regret even uttering the name. There are a ton of examples of coaches who early on aren't coaching good teams. When do you get a coaching job? A lot of times you get a coaching job for a really bad team.
I think he was comparing them. First of all, people thought Belichick sucked.
Oh, yeah,
after
in Cleveland.
That first year in New England.
Even in Cleveland. But when he got hired, they despised him.
Oh, Dan Shaughnessy. It's like the front page. They traded 2 first-round picks to the Jets for Belichick. And the front page of the Boston Globe was like, Patriots will rue the day that they traded for Bill Belichick. And so, I think they hated him. But I think that was a comparison of like, it took Bill a while to become Bill, and it's taken John Hines a little while to become John Hines. So I don't know if we'll hear that kind of talk tomorrow on the Robbie and Joe program. 615-737-1025. Let's get to your phones. We'll do that. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063. The Game, FanDuel Sportsbook. That is my official sportsbook app. I love the FanDuel Sportsbook app. This baseball season, get more thrills out of every at-bat on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can step up to the plate with a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Just go to FanDuel.com/JGM to sign up. Place your first bet and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you do not win. I'm feeling my Atlanta Braves. And they lost yesterday to the A's, and the A's stink, so I'm thinking they're probably going to win tonight. And I'm telling you, my team is good. You can wager on everything from the money line to hits to which pitcher will lead the league in strikeouts. Plus, with FanDuel's fast payouts, you get your winnings the same inning. So swing for the fences with a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. FanDuel.com/JGM to sign up. FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball. 21 and older and present in Tennessee. First online real money wager only. $10 deposit required. Refund issue is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789.
Want to jump into the mind of a 15-year NFL vet? Well, here's your chance. D-Mace. It's Ask D-Mace.
Come on, bring them on.
Ask questions on football and life to Derek Mason every Friday at 12:30 on Ask D-Mace.
Don't mess with her. The skilled guy. Money reigns supreme.
On Caroline, Willie, and
D-Mace.
On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Hear that? That's Jeff Anderson. He's that guy in your neighborhood that's always making improvements to his house, his car, his yard. On your street, it's about keeping up with the Andersons. One thing you don't know is Jeff's tools are from Harbor Freight. Tools at great prices. That circular saw right there, you wouldn't believe the deal he got. Just think, when you're keeping up with the Andersons, you're saving money. Whatever you do it for less at Harbor Freight.
High interest rates may be the norm everywhere else. But right now at Genesis Diamonds, we're always thinking about our customers, and we've decided to slash interest rates down to 0% for 5 years. That means you can get those diamond earrings, that designer engagement ring, or that luxury pre-owned Rolex and spread your payments over 5 whole years without paying a dime in interest. Birthdays, anniversaries, just because gifts starting as low as $35 a month. And that's with 0 down. Now through July 1st only. And only at Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills and Cool Springs. Approved credit. See store for details.
Tuning into the baseball game, monitoring the incoming storm, catching your favorite talk show. These are just a few of the reasons more than 80 million Americans depend on AM radio each month. And did you know AM radio is the backbone of the emergency alert system, keeping us safe in dangerous times? It's reliable, free, and public safety depends on it. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress we need AM radio in cars. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
When you order food for work on EasyCater.com, we've got your back. Real humans are here to help with your order every step of the way, making sure everything goes right, even behind the scenes without you knowing. Confirming and double confirming with the restaurant that everything is on track. If there's a problem,
thanks for calling EasyCater.
Call us anytime, day or night, and we'll answer in seconds. We're right here with 100,000 restaurants, working hard to ensure the food arrives on time and is ordered. Order 24/7 at EasyCater.com.
Nashville's radio version of The Odd Couple.
This number makes more sense.
It does not make more sense.
Yes, absolutely.
Robbie Stanley and Joe Rexrode are Robbie and Rexrode.
Yay, we win.
No, we don't. We lose.
No, I disagree.
Robbie and Rexrode. Mornings from 6 to 9.
If you're good enough, you're good enough.
It's absurd. Presented by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. You're listening to Stillman and Company on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Brunette was really thrust in there before anybody thought it was going to happen. And he coached a team that won the President's Trophy last year and got blown out in the second round by Tampa Bay. And ultimately, Florida decided to make a coaching change that looks really good right now because they're in the Stanley Cup final. But I don't think anybody looked at it as a negative on Brunette. They just felt it was too quick. And, he was an assistant coach this year on a team that really did well. New Jersey had a great season. They have a lot of young players. You guys are bringing in some young players. He's very encouraging the young players. Like I said, he was in demand, Carolyn. If you didn't take him, somebody else was going to. So you've got a real up-and-coming coach here who was in demand, and I'm not surprised that you guys jumped at it rather than having him go somewhere else.
John Hines out, Andrew Burnett in. That was Elliot Friedman earlier today on the Midday Show. Let's go to your phones as promised. Lincoln is up next on John Hines. Thank you for calling. What's up, Lincoln?
Hey, Jared. Man, I've been waiting for this day for a long time because I'm not necessarily a John Hines hater. Well, okay. It's just like I feel like if we kept Hines, we'd keep playing mediocre hockey because I went down there a couple times this season, and I've never seen more uninspired hockey from a team than the Preds pre-trade deadline. They just looked sluggish and almost bored, and it just felt like it was time for a change in that locker room. And if you need a change in that locker room, it starts with the head coach. So I'm totally okay with him just finally getting out of there. We'll see what this new guy brings in, but right now I'm just glad to see Hines out of there.
So here's the thing I think we should all be okay with admitting. Thank you for your call, Lincoln. John Hines was a bad coach. It's okay. It's like I think so many people, wanted to fight with me for forever, which we will get to this, by the way, about how, I didn't give John Hines a chance. And truthfully, that may be somewhat fair. But if John Hines had them in the Western Conference Finals, I probably would have felt different about John Hines. But he didn't. I wasn't a huge fan of the Titans hiring Mike Vrabel. But Mike Vrabel wins football games, and I think Vrabel's a really, really good coach, except for the, once out of every 5 times that his head is so shoved up his tush, it's touching his colon. Other than that, I think Vrabel's a great coach. And I was not a fan of the firing of Mike Mularkey and the hiring of Mike Vrabel. But, here's John Hines, who has coached now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, parts of 9 seasons in the NHL. And, here's his results. Missed playoffs, first round, missed playoffs, lost the play-in, first round, missed the playoffs. I mean, for the better part of a decade, he's been a coach in the NHL, and he's never won anything. I mean, he barely even won. He was 33-31 in the playoffs as an AHL coach. So, it's okay to admit that John Hines was a bad coach. And I feel like people are afraid to do that because, this is Nashville, Tennessee, and we don't want to hurt people's feelings. But, let's keep it real. He's a bad coach. He should have never been hired. They hired him. They sold you all that they thought he was a great coach. And just like the Kyle Turris trade or the Ryan Hartman trade or the Matt Duchene contract or all these other moves David Poile made, it was a bad move. And it's okay. And we can all admit it and we can all move on because it's over. And I'm sure John Hines thinks he got a raw deal here, and there may be a little bit of truth to that, but no coach gets a perfect job. And I was talking to a buddy of mine who works at a station in America that is just a behemoth, and he can't crack the daily lineup. And I think he's a good radio host. I do. And he cannot crack the daily lineup. And he and I were talking about that. And I said, nobody ever gets jobs in radio where it's easy. Very rarely does somebody get a job where they just start off at the top. Talk to Sean Hannity about everywhere he had to go. Rush Limbaugh, everywhere he had to go. Right now, the most popular local afternoon show in America is the afternoon show that we play cuts from all the time in Boston called Felger and Maz. Every year, it's the number 1 show in the country. And Mike Felger, the host of that show, who makes $1 million a year on the radio, Mike Felger was on a station in Boston that had no signal and no listeners. And that's where he developed his game. So John Hines may think I got a raw deal. But no job is perfect. Every job, unless somebody retires and they hand it off to you, every job, and normally that guy retires a little too late. But, every time you take a new job, there's some warts. Andrew Brunette did not have it easy last year when the guy he was working for all of a sudden was one of the, was exiled from the NHL, and all of a sudden it's, hey, babe, you're moving up on the bench, and we have high expectations here. But he did it. It's not easy. Barry Trott's first go-around, they were an expansion team, and it's not the expansion like today where you get all these good players off the jump. They had a bunch of nothing. They had no money. Ownership kept changing hands. They tried to sell the team to BlackBerry. He had to deal with all of that. And he made out okay. So I would just say, it's okay to admit that you're happy today that the Predators have moved on at coach because they are moving off of a bad coach. And that's okay to say. I know it feels rude, and it might be, but we tell the truth on this program. That's like Joe Mazzulla, the coach of the Celtics last night. If I owned the Celtics, he'd be fired. And we'd go get a veteran coach because he was in over his head in this series. And I know it wasn't fair for Joe Mazzulla because Ime Udoka did whatever he did, that now Joe Mazzulla's on the biggest stage and it's Game 7 and he gets, completely worked over by Spoelstra and his team stinks. But it's Boston. And it's the Celtics. And losing and getting embarrassed on your home court in Game 7, that's not acceptable. And so it's sometimes, like they always say when they fire people and cut guys, it's tough, but it's a business. Well, that's how we have to approach. We have to be real about our teams. And John Hines was not a good coach. 615-737-1025. We'll roll through some more calls. 615-737-1025. And I think the most refreshing thing about today's news and the future of the Predators is next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
The NFL offseason is in full swing, but you'll never miss any of the big news. Thanks to Yahoo's Charles Robinson.
They know that there's a chance that they're going to have to deal this guy.
He's one of the best insiders there is.
All of a sudden, he becomes a functional player who we thought was just trash.
Join Charles Robinson every Thursday morning at 8 on Robbie and Rex Road, presented by the NFL Alumni Association on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
Attention all fire and safety line experts. Middle Tennessee's fastest growing fire protection company is looking for experienced service technicians, designers, and sprinkler system experts like you. Tired of working for a large corporate employer? Work for a company where you're more than just a number. Jarrett Fire Protection is owned and operated by Nashville natives and wants to invite you to grow with their amazing team.
Hi, I'm Jason Jarrett, owner of Jarrett Companies. I'm looking to hire experienced sprinkler experts and will offer a sign-on bonus of up to $5,000 for certified professionals, in addition to our great benefits that include a 401k match, PTO, and top pay with annual bonuses. We will also provide you with the top-of-the-line tools, trucks, and equipment that you need to grow your career. Our customer base is large and business is booming with many opportunities for advancement. Give us a call or go online to jarrettfire.com and apply today to become a member of our family and protect our community. That's JARRETT fire.com. Jarrett Companies, where we are above and beyond industry standards.
If you're hiring, it can feel like you're trying to find a needle in a haystack. You can hope the right person comes along, or you can just use ZipRecruiter. And now you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. In fact, ZipRecruiter has helped a lot of business owners find their needle in a haystack, like Marco, president of operations at Telly Tires and Auto Centers. Because Telly Tires has grown a lot in the last few years, Marco needed to hire everyone from a receptionist to a store manager to a head mechanic.
ZipRecruiter helps me find all the right people, even the most difficult jobs to fill. ZipRecruiter helps me keep my business running.
Take it from Marco and millions of other businesses who've used ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter can help you find the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. That's ZipRecruiter.com/RADIO. ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
Buffalo Bills Center of the West in Cody, Wyoming welcomes you as you enter Yellowstone Park's east entrance. 5 museums in one and the greatest firearms museum anywhere. Welcome to the West. Buffalo Bills Center of the West, Cody, Wyoming.
Now, your Game Center update.
The Nashville Predators will have a new coach. According to the team, the Preds have relieved head coach John Hines and assistant coach Dan Lambert of their jobs. In a release, incoming GM Barry Trotz said, quote, "After our year-end meetings and some additional evaluation, it was time to change the voice and time to go in a different direction," end quote. Reports are that Andrew Brunette will take over as the new head coach. Brunette was an original member of the expansion Preds team, scoring the first goal in franchise history. Brunette has spent the last several seasons as an assistant coach with Minnesota, Florida, and New Jersey, including leading Florida to the President's Trophy as the interim head coach. NHL insider Elliot Friedman on Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace earlier today.
He was in demand. If you didn't take him, somebody else was going to. So you've got a real up-and-coming coach here who was in demand, and I'm not surprised that you guys jumped at it rather than having him go somewhere else.
The Nashville Sounds are back in action tonight as they take on Charlotte. Hear coverage starting at 4:50 on your home of the Sounds, 94.9 The Fan. I'm Ian Safar for 105, 106.3 The Game.
For more, follow us on Twitter at 1025thegame or visit thegamenashville.com. Live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. WPRT-FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne. Nashville's exclusive home for the Nashville Predators. 1025 and 1063.
A gutty performance. Do your job.
And the Tigers regain the lead.
The Game.
A Cromwell media station.
Where you have a voice.
He had a competent coaching staff.
You just play terrible and you keep playing.
And we have strong opinions.
What a whiny freaking crybaby response.
This is Stillman and Company with Jared Stillman on Nashville's best sports talk, 1025 and 1063 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Thanks to Superbook Sports, live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. And today is a great day to be a Predators fan because, as you heard in the update right there, John Hines is out. Andrew Brunette, I have no idea if he's a good coach or not. He did well with the Florida Panthers last year. He's a good up-and-coming coach, supposedly. Bring him in. And I am a happy Predators fan today that I was picking out what shirt I should use for my Peloton workout. Mind you, I don't actually have the Peloton bike, but I do have a bike, and I do have an elliptical. And with our insurance here at 1025, we get free Peloton memberships. So I signed up for a free Peloton membership. So I take the class, and when they say bump it up, I bump it up. And when they say bump it down, I bump it down. Stuff's hard. But the reason I said is I was looking for a shirt. And then I put on my 2018 Preds playoff shirt this morning. I was so excited with the news today about what the Predators did. And I'm a big believer in giving credit where credit is due. And I'm going to give Barry Trotz a lot of credit. Now, I don't know if this move is going to work out. Somebody texted into the text line earlier today, and they talked about Philip Fulmer and how Vol fans love the hiring of Philip Fulmer because he was a Vol. And how they loved the hiring of Jeremy Pruitt because he was Fulmer's guy. And we know how that worked out. And I agree. You know, when they hired Barry Trotz, who has no experience as a GM, I was like, all right, I hope this works, but let's see. Same with Andrew Brunette. I mean, the guy was the runner-up for Coach of the Year last year. The guy who won it's been fired, but he was runner-up for Coach of the Year. He did a good job with the Florida Panthers. This is not the Florida Panthers, so we'll see. But here's where I'm going to give Barry Trotz credit. Because what Barry Trotz did today was a very un-Nashville Predators-like move. This is a move that I feel like most in the organization probably would have voted against. If we had had a blind vote where every person in the Preds organization, so every broadcaster, everybody in the ticket office, everybody in marketing, the brass, the owners, the general manager, everybody got a vote. If the Nashville Predators were a democracy, I think John Hines stays as the coach. If David Poile was still the general manager, I think John Hines would still be the coach. I mean, I love Chris Mason, and I mean it. I mean, I love that dude. But last year, he came on the show, and he defended tooth and nail John Hines as a coach. And I'm like, why? Why? And Barry Trotz showed up, and even though Hines, based on the expectations of what we thought they were going to be the day that Trotz showed up, Hines probably did a pretty good job. He still was like, no, we're getting in a new coach. I don't think this organization would have made this move if it wasn't for Barry Trotz. If Barry Trotz walked in and said, okay, guys, we're going to do things my way, which is also the way I think they're done now in the NHL, which is coaches don't get the benefit of the doubt. Vegas last year had their injury issues. Peter DeBoer did not keep his job there in the Cup final. Florida had their Joel Quenneville issue. Andrew Burnett was the runner-up for the Coach of the Year award. They won the President's Trophy, and they lost in the second round to a wagon of a team. That wasn't good enough for him to keep his job in Florida. He was out. This is the new NHL. But the Predators have always been slow to fire, slow to rebuild, slow to move on. Although I think they fired Laviolette pretty quick. You know, I just don't think this move gets made if Barry Trotz is not the one pulling the strings. And what it tells me is that there's a new sheriff in town, but a new sheriff who is willing to look in the mirror. A new sheriff who is willing to smell the coffee. I told Barry Trotz when he came on the show right before the end of the season, and he and I spent some time talking before the interview, after the interview. I told Barry, I was like, look, man, you're probably not going to agree with everything that I say. I'm just going to tell you straight up. But I have respect for how you went about your business as coach. And I have respect for how he's gone about his business as a general manager. He's not going to tell us everything. And I can live with that. It would not have been appropriate for him to have told Robbie 3 weeks ago, yeah, you know, I'm trying to hire either Spencer Carberry or Andrew Burnett, and if I don't hire one of those two guys, maybe I'll stick with Hines, but I don't know. That would not have been appropriate, and so I'm not going to say, well, he shouldn't have said that. I think Hines handled it fine. People are saying they did, or excuse me, Trotz, people are saying that they did Hines wrong. I mean, I think they did Hines right by hiring him when they shouldn't have hired him, by giving him an extension after that awful Colorado series last year, and the fact that he's never won anything here, and how often they constantly looked the other way. Every time something bad happened, they always found the silver lining in it, and I think that's just who David Poile is. That he just finds the silver lining because he's looking for it. And Barry Trotz is not running this operation that way. This is a new era of Preds hockey. This is a new era of responsibility and accountability. And I'm excited about that. And I think it would have been very easy for Barry Trotz to walk into this job and to have a blank slate where everybody thinks Trotz was a good hire and was doing a good job, and there was a lot of optimism because of the reputation that he had built up as the head coach here for 15 years. And he could have kept John Hines, and not one of us, including me, would have held it against him if John Hines did not perform well next year, because we would have said, well, that was David Poile's guy. And they may not be good next year. David Poile stressed at the end of the year press conference to the fans, be patient with the organization. And I agree with him about that. I've been calling for rebuilding for years. I know it's not going to be easy. So Barry could have stuck with John Hines, and that would have been fine. And then when John Hines lost, he could have fired John Hines, and none of us would have blamed Barry. But that's not what Barry was interested in doing. Barry wasn't interested in the narrative. Barry wasn't interested in looking for the silver lining. Barry wasn't interested in talking points for everybody to parrot as soon as they came out of his mouth for everybody to be positive about this upcoming season. Barry's trying to win. And I've said this about the Predators, and it has driven me crazy for years. The old Eric Dickerson line, the we want to win. We don't want to almost win. And I feel like with the Predators, ever since they fired Laviolette, there's been a lot of moral victories. There's been a lot of, well, we turned the season around and we lost that game. We lost 2 games to Carolina in overtime, so we were right there. And nobody expected us to make the playoffs, and we made the playoffs. You got housed in the playoffs. I know, but we made them. I mean, the excuse making around here got so bad that the day UC Saros got hurt towards the end of the season last year in 2022, I remember when he got carried off the ice, and I said the next day, there's the excuse. So when they lose, it'll be, we didn't have Saros. And I'm tired of excuse making. And to be honest with you, I've been tired of how the organization has handled the hockey business over the last couple of years. It's like everything has to be an argument. It's like we can't just watch the game on TV and say, don't you guys see, like, aren't we seeing the same thing? And so Barry Trotz walked into an environment where I think everybody had been trained and brainwashed to think that this guy was a good coach. And that was David Poyle's guy. And it was such a kind baton passing between Barry Trotz and David Poyle, and even a kind baton passing this process from Herb Fritsch to Bill Haslam as far as ownership's concerned, that it's almost like I wondered if Barry wanted to fire John Hines or was afraid to, because even though it's his team now, that would be like undoing David Poyle's, biggest step of legislation with an executive order on his first day in office. But what I've learned about this is Barry doesn't care. Barry wants to win. I think Barry, and I've talked to him, I think Barry's committed to winning. I don't think Barry's committed to making excuses. I don't think Barry's committed to doing what everybody in the building is telling him he should do. I don't think Barry is committed to almost winning. I think Barry's committed to winning. And so this Andrew Burnett thing, he may not be a good coach. I have no idea how this is going to work. I mean, I thought Scott Frost, when he was hired at Nebraska, after turning UCF into a national title contender, and he goes to Nebraska where he was an alum, I thought he was going to win some football games there, and he never did. So there's no way to know. But the fact that the organization is willing to look themselves in the mirror and be honest, and let's not kid ourselves. Barry's statement talked about how John Hines is a good coach. He's not good enough for Barry. And that's the reality of the news today, is that Barry looked around, he evaluated John Hines, he got to know John Hines, and whatever it was that he thinks about John Hines, he may think he's the worst coach in the league, he may think he's a really good coach, but at the end of the day, he never thought John Hines was good enough for him, or else John Hines would still be here. And I got to give Barry a lot of credit for that, because that's not how the organization's been run lately. And that gives me optimism about this new administration. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. I'm so excited about the news today, about where the organization is headed, and so on and so forth. We'll get to some of your phones at 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in. Plus, the one thing that I got to say, I got to get it off my chest. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Your home for every big pass.
Chase Elliott will pick up the stage 1 win.
Big wreck.
Joey Logano gets turned. He's hard into the inside wall.
And big win.
Kyle Busch has won here at the Talladega Superspeedway.
Catch every lap of NASCAR on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Hey, it's Mike from Newton Nissan South. School's almost out. Parents, are you ready for the summer break? Long days, hot weather, restless kids? Oh my, we've got one possible solution for you. Our annual student car giveaway. If you have a high school student who makes good grades, listen up. Our student car giveaway is our way of rewarding those smart students. For every A on their report card, they get one entry to win a brand new Nissan Versa. That's right, good grades might equal a free car. The student doesn't even have to have their own driver's license. Just good grades on a Tennessee high school report card. It's simple to enter too. Just go to newtonnissansouth.com/our car giveaway and follow the instructions to enter. They must be present to win at the giveaway event at Newton Nissan South in Shelbyville on June 23rd. The deadline to enter is June 12th, so don't delay. Enter your high schooler today. Yes, this is a free car that will be given away to one lucky Tennessee high school student. Even if they only got one A in gym class, they're eligible.
Interest rates may be high everywhere else, but now at Genesis Diamonds, you can get zero interest on any purchase. 5 years, zero interest financing with nothing down. Beautiful eternity bands, 1-carat diamond stud earrings, and more. Starting at only $50 a month. At Genesis, we are always looking for ways to do more for our amazing customers. So don't miss this. 5 years, zero interest financing. Imagine that $6,000 designer ring is just $100 a month. We'll even finance the sales tax. Now through July 1st only, and only at Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills and Cool Springs. On approved credit, see store for details.
What's up, everybody? Teron Davenport here for Superbook Sports. Bring that big bet energy this summer with Superbook Sports. Superbook Sports is the most trusted name in sports betting. And right now, use promo code THEGAME to score up to $250 with their first bet bonus. Win or lose, they'll match your first bet up to $250 with promo code THEGAME. Simply visit superbook.com for terms and conditions or download the Superbook Tennessee app in the app stores. Enter promo code THEGAME and you'll get $250 courtesy of Superbook Sports. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hey, it's Jared from my friends at Hiller. Hiller's Heat Wave Heroes are keeping you from getting burned this summer. If you know your home needs an air conditioning replacement, do not wait until it breaks down. You do not want to be sweating in your home. This month, get a free UV light and free electronic air cleaner when you buy select new HVAC systems. Or get a whole home water filtration for just $59 a month. Or get a new whole home generator for just $139 a month. Call Hiller's Heat Wave Heroes to save the day. Visit happyhiller.com to book.
Want to enter the construction field as a career? Make good money and finish with no debt and earn while you learn. Average starting salary over $18 an hour. First year of college averages $10,000. 4 years of our Construction Trades Academy, a total of $8,000 to $9,600. Applications are open with first-year scholarships available. CTANash.com. ABC Greater Tennessee Construction Trades Academy. Apply today. CTANash.com.
Want to see our smiling faces? You can watch us on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are good to go. Presented by Superbook Sports, voted #1 sportsbook in Vegas. Strong opinions and a strong personality on your drive home. This is Stillman and Company on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
John, what are you going to do differently in Nashville that you didn't do in New Jersey?
Well, I think it's a situation of two different teams. I think one of the most important things you have to do is really understand what the makeup of your team is, and then how that team needs to be able to play, maximize the talent, and also try to put players in situations regularly that they're going to be able to thrive in and benefit in. And I think if I just shop and compare the two, that, you know, in New Jersey, it's a great young team. We had an excellent organization, but we're rebuilding. And when you're rebuilding, lots of times there's turnovers, or guys are they're just getting into finding out what type of players or what impact they can have in the NHL. And I think when you look at Nashville, there's guys that you know what they are, and now it's about putting them in situations that they earn, that they can succeed in, and then trying to maximize the way that they can play.
There you go. That was John Hines. He told us this is not a rebuilding job when he was hired. And I have to say this, and I really debated whether or not we should talk about this on the air, but I do think that, you know, this show, we've been through a lot together as a group. And I don't say this to be mean-spirited, and I don't say this to be rude, and I don't say this to make it about me. But I say this because I want you to know how much I value the team and how everything that I think when it comes to the Preds or the Titans is not agenda related, but it is in the best interest of the team, TEAM. And I hold people accountable. When they hired John Hines, I did not understand it. I thought Peter Laviolette did a good job. Now, I didn't think at the point in time that Peter was doing a great job, but I also wasn't convinced that Peter was doing a fireable job either. And then they fired him. And the Titans were in the middle of the playoffs, and at 5 o'clock on a Monday, they announced that Peter Laviolette was fired. And I didn't like it, but I was like, okay, let's see who they hire. And Peter DeBoer was out there, who had been to a Stanley Cup final. And, there were some other coaches that were starting to become available that teams were, and I was like, all right. You know, maybe they promote the Milwaukee guy, they make him the interim head coach, and then they do a search and they find a coach. And the next morning at 9 a.m., they hire John Hines to be the coach. And I'm looking at this guy's resume, and I'm like, why'd they hire this guy? I mean, they fired Laviolette, a proven winner, and they replaced him with a guy who, in his division at New Jersey, finished 7th, 8th, 5th, 8th. And then he was fired in the midst of a 9-13-4 season. And I didn't find a single answer that was given to me when they hired him. I did not find a single answer satisfactory as to why they believed in him. I mean, I could see through everything when it happened. I mean, they're sitting there telling us about how much they believe in John Hines, and they're saying, hey, New Jersey, Ray Shero and Tom Fitzgerald, they believed in him. And I'm sitting there in the media, you know, in the chairs, I'm like, they just freaking fired him. What are you talking about? Oh, they think he's a great coach. They just fired him. How can they think he's a great coach? And then they talked and they talked and they talked about turning it around. And every time they'd win a game or win 2 games, it was, oh, we think we turned the corner. And it drove me crazy because I thought I was living on a different planet. Now, I did give John Hines credit, and I do think John Hines did a good job turning around that 21 season. And they got in the playoffs, and I thought he coached horribly in the playoffs. Jacob Slavin is coming back from an injury for Carolina, and he's playing, 8 minutes of penalty kill time. And Roman Josi, a $9 million defenseman, is not allowed to play on the penalty kill because, we don't want to tax him too much. And so I got freaking Ben Harper and Eric Goodbranson out there. I thought it was freaking stupid. I thought his strategy was awful. And I thought Rod Brindamore completely worked the refs, and it worked in his favor in Game 5, in which he got a very important power play at just the right time. And then John Hines got defiant and mad at me over the fact that I'm sitting here and saying, like, hey, why aren't you working the refs like the other guy? That is part of coaching. But every time it was, no, you don't understand. You'll see. And I never bought in that. And I read your messages and things like that. And I know how many people were mad, like, how dare Jared Stillman on the flagship station of the Nashville Predators not just pump sunshine when it comes to the hiring of this new coach? I read all of that. It's probably the same people that said that how dare Jared Stillman not pump sunshine about the Milwaukee Admirals. I mean, I couldn't believe some of the things I heard about why I should believe in John Hines. And I gave him a chance, but I never bought it. I did a little bit at the end of that 21 season. I saw that maybe he's a good coach, but no. And then it turned into just, oh, well, we have to give him credit because they barely made the playoffs and they didn't win a game against Colorado. And it was everybody. Last year, Chris Mason, and I love Chris Mason with all of my heart. I do. But last year, he came on the show. He said, I want to debate you about John Hines. And he defended John Hines tooth and nail. This was last year.
Did you not think that they worked hard and competed for what they had on the ice?
No.
Are you serious?
I thought they got embarrassed in game
serious?
1.
Like, are you?
I thought they got.
You're acting like a super. You act like a super fan where you have no understanding of the underlying things. And you said this.
Can I answer the question though?
Yeah. John Hines' system sucks. What is his system?
What's his identity that he always talks about?
What is it then? What's his system? The identity is
system,
how you play.
He wants them to forecheck. He wants
Okay.
them to forecheck. He wants them to be physical. He wants the offense to be started by them playing hard defense across 4 lines every night for the entire game. That's the system.
Okay, what system should they play if his sucks?
I don't know. I just think that you can't ask those guys to work that hard 82 games out of a season. I just don't.
You're
think
not getting in the
playoffs
if you don't. You're not getting in the playoffs if you don't play that way. That's the whole point. Like, do you not understand? they can't coast the last month of the season like the Colorado Avalanche did, because they pretty much wrapped up the Western Conference in January. They've got to play that way every single night in order to make the playoffs, and all of a sudden his system sucks.
Just tooth and nail. And the question was, did you not think they were competitive? And I said no. Did you watch the Colorado series? Chris, I love you, baby. I do. But did you watch the Colorado series? It wasn't close. And so this felt like a 4-year thing where I constantly had to fight with them about whether or not John Hines was a good coach. And I saw other teams fire their coach who was a better coach and had accomplished more, and turn around and hire a better coach. And I'm sitting there watching Rick talk it on television, and I'm like, why can't this guy be the coach? Why can't somebody else be the coach? When I look at Dallas at last year, they finished just above you, and they fired their coach. I look at Vegas, they finished just behind you, and they fired their coach. Every team that had higher expectations than you last season and finished behind you or with you fired their coach. I mean, the guys who lose and keep their jobs, Mike Sullivan in Pittsburgh, 2 cups. Craig Berube in St. Louis. I mean, let's keep it real about that. And so, I mean, let's not kid ourselves. But he won a cup. Like, he won a cup. And he's still with the Blues. And if they don't do better, he may not keep that job. But at least those guys won cups. And it was like for 4 years I had to fight with them. The day they hired John Hines, I'm like, why? And people were so offended. Hal Gill came on the show that day, and it was, you'll see, you'll see, you'll see. And we never saw. And this is why I go back to all these hockey guys. They keep telling me, oh, you don't understand the game. You don't know. You don't. I know this. I know John Hines was hired to do a job. He was hired to take the 2020 team and turn it back into what they were in 18 and 17. And he never did it. And he never won a playoff series. And he got chance after chance after chance, and he never did it. Which is a long-winded way of me saying, I was right. To everybody out there that wants to say, I don't know hockey, to everybody out there that wants to say that I'm not fair, to everybody out there that says, how can you say these things on the flagship station about the new coach that we just hired? I was right. It's because it's the truth. That's why. That's why I tell you, when I think they need to fire a coach, when I think they need to fire a general manager, when I think they need to trade for a player, when I think they need to, because I am concerned about what is in the best interest of the team. 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 If there were to be a mission statement of this program right now, it would be, we want to win. We don't want to almost win. I'm going to steal that from Eric Dickerson. And everybody tried to sell me on John Hines. They tried and tried and tried and tried, and I never really bought it. I thought he did a good job at the end of the 21 season, and by the end of that playoff series, I knew the guy couldn't coach. And nobody, I think, will hire him as a head coach, and if they do, I feel sorry for that fan base. But John Hines is not a winning coach, guys. And just because you want to talk it into existence never made it true. So I just want us to acknowledge that. For every time that you get mad at me, for every time that you think that I've got an agenda that is outside of the, holding the teams accountable and finding the best ways to win, just know I was right about this. I was right about John Hines. They were wrong. And now, I think Barry Trotz is right. And on we go. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on what is a great day for the Predators. Coming up next, there is one little incident that we have to discuss when it comes to Andrew Brunette, the new coach, and we will do that. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
All the big plays.
Henry right up the middle. Touchdown, Tennessee.
All the big stories.
The Titans' window to contend is however long Derrick Henry stays Derrick Henry.
All in one place. We are Nashville's best sports talk. 102.5 and 106.3.
Gets it back and scores.
Our execution was good. They have not found their groove. It's always great to win in this league. It's tough to win.
The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Whether you're popping the question or ready to say I do, there's only one true jeweler to shop for your one true love. Hi, it's Alex Johnson from the Diamond Cellar. As a true jeweler, we not only have luxury designer collections to meet your bridal needs, but we also have talented in-house designers who can create something truly one of a kind. For more than 75 years, our expert staff has been caring for couples just like you and providing the absolute lowest prices guaranteed. Visit us at the Diamond Cellar in Green Hills. The possibilities are endless.
Join 102.5 The Game and 94.9 The Fan on June 6th for a night of music benefiting Souls for Souls at the Night Before Charities Writers Round featuring Saving Abel. General admission is $20 with every ticket going to purchase a new pair of shoes for a child experiencing homelessness. It's happening at the all-new Ballad East next to the Gallatin Hotel in East Nashville. Lineup also includes Louis Bryce, Brian Davis, Austin Ellis, as well as Lee and Tiffany Turner. Doors open at 6 o'clock. Get your tickets now at theGameNashville.com/golf.
Imagine you're looking at a balancing scale with everything you do for other people on one side and everything you do for yourself on the other side. If it isn't balanced, maybe it's time to spend a little more time on you. And therapy is a great place to start. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist online who can help you find that balance and stick to it. Visit BetterHelp.com/score to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/score.
CMA Fest is happening in downtown Nashville, June 8th through 11th, with dozens of performances by many of today's hottest black country artists, including K. Michelle, Chapel Hart, the TSU Aristocratic Bands, Breland, and many more. Proceeds benefit the CMA Foundation and music education programs. Visit CMAfest.com for details.
Cromwell Media, the proud owner of this radio station, is recognizing 3 of our talented teammates in May. At 102.9 The Buzz, part-time host Roman Haviland notches 11 years, and Chris Atticus, the Buzz brand manager and midday host, celebrates 3 years. Nick Frazier, part-time producer on 102.5, 106.3 The Game, passes his first year with us. We thank each of them for helping us make a difference every day. And by the way, we're always looking for new talent. Ping us at together@cromwellmedia.com and let's talk.
The postseason is here. Whether it's the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs or the NBA, we have you covered on Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Hey Nashville, this is Rick Stockstill, and you're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 The Game.
Elliot, what are the Predators getting in their new head coach, Andrew Brunette?
Well, I think Andrew Brunette is a very smart guy. I think that's the first thing. He was really respected as a player, not the most talented player, but a guy who got a lot out of his ability and played a long time. He was a really respected player for how hard he worked, what a good teammate he was. Just, the guy rarely took a shift off. He always played like he knew that if he did take too many shifts off, it wasn't going to be good for him. When he went into coaching, he got into a really tough situation in Florida. He was an assistant coach there, and I think everybody saw how he was going to eventually be a head coach. It happened faster than everybody expected because of Joel Quenneville's suspension, the aftermath of the really awful Kyle Beach situation in Chicago. And Brunette was really thrust in there before anybody thought it was going to happen. And he coached a team that won the President's Trophy last year and got blown out in the second round by Tampa Bay. And ultimately, Florida decided to make a coaching change that looks really good right now because they're in the Stanley Cup final. But I don't think anybody looked at it as a negative on Brunette They just felt it was too quick.
There you go. That was Elliot Friedman on the Midday Show earlier today. I like the hire of Andrew Brunette. He did a good job as the interim coach in Florida, and I think it's time for him to be a full-time head coach. And he knows Barry. He played for Barry both in the minor leagues and here and so on and so forth. So I think it's going to be fine. But here's what I would say. I feel like there's one thing that's going to come up that maybe people don't know about that I don't think is that big of a deal. And I think DUIs are a big deal. Make no mistake about it. Now, I also think good people get DUIs. You know, a DUI is very dangerous, as we all know, because you can get somebody killed with a DUI. But that doesn't mean that we all don't know people in our lives that have DUIs, and as far as the DUIs are concerned, they're still good people. But this isn't the standard DUI. I'm going to read to you the story. This is from the Miami Herald. Ex-Florida Panthers coach arrested in Boca Raton for driving a golf cart. The charge, DUI. 9 months after being an NHL Coach of the Year finalist, coaching the Florida Panthers to their best regular season ever and first playoff series win in 26 years, Andrew Brunette woke up in a Broward County, Maine jail during NHL All-Star Game Week. The charge, according to the online jail records, is driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Not good. Brunette, 49, also got 2 tickets for disobeying stop or yield signs from a deputy out of a BSO's Deerfield Beach office. What is a BSO? Do we know what that is?
Not totally. Let me check.
A BSO. So, well, I'm sure it's some kind of cop. A BSO's Deerfield Beach office after a golf cart chase over the
Broward Sheriff's Office, the Broward County Sheriff's Office.
Yeah. So, you know, a cop told him to stop, and he didn't, which isn't good, and he had a $500 bond that afternoon. Now, the All-Star game was in Florida, and so that's, I guess, why he was down there. And I knew that it was something about a golf cart, but I didn't read into it until today because, honestly, I didn't care that much, and now that he's the coach of the Predators, I do care. But as I'm reading the story, it sounds more stupid than it does problematic. Brunette's golf cart drew a parking ticket. The BSO deputy writing out the ticket noticed Brunette's slurred speech and unsteadiness on his feet while accepting the citation. He said he heard Brunette's wife tell him not to drive because the police were still there. About 17 minutes later, the deputy wrote that he saw Brunette get in the golf cart and run Northeast 20th Avenue stop signs at Northeast 4th Court and Northeast South 7th Street. After a traffic stop in the 3000 block of Banyan Road, about a south mile of Brunette's house, the deputy noticed that he had bloodshot eyes and a strong odor of alcoholic beverages. He repeated several times that he just wanted to go home, but he couldn't repeat the walk and turn roadside sobriety test. The arrest said that he began to walk off again, requesting his attorney. That's when, according to the report, he was handcuffed. So I just kind of read through the story, and then at the end of the story, there's a map down at the bottom. And it shows where the Kahuna Bar and Grill was and where his house was. And it gives you kind of the map detail of how long it would take. 2 minutes in a car, 0.5 miles. Think about that. So it was a half a mile drive in a neighborhood where he went from the bar to his house. Again, I don't like it. I wish it didn't happen. But there is a difference between that and what Todd Downing did when he was going 100 on I-65 in a Tesla. So tomorrow, I'm sure this will come up, and I'm sure he'll say, yeah, that was stupid. I can't believe I did it, blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't mean that I endorse the behavior, but it's not the standard DUI. The standard DUI is the Todd Downing thing. Like, that to me is the standard, where a guy is driving a car and he can get somebody killed. And that's not what Andrew Brunette did. And again, good people get DUIs. Good people, I hate to say this, good people get DUIs and crash their cars. And their lives are forever different because of it. And That doesn't make him a bad person. But that kind of judgment makes it harder to make a guy the coach. Driving a golf cart 2 minutes up the road, it's a little different when your home's right by the bar. Now, maybe he should have heeded the warning of his wife who said, hey, don't go because the cops are there. But look, I don't think that would make anybody unhireable. It's embarrassing and it's a little disappointing, but this is me, I don't think it's that big of a deal. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in here on the program. A texter into the text line says that my logic on Hines is not a good logic. Quote, your logic is ridiculous. It's like saying that you are a terrible sports show host because you can't make it as a national host. When I said that John Hines did not win a playoff series in 8 seasons in 2 different spots. At the end of the day, you got to win. And a texter says, well, Floyd Reese was a 500 GM, but you recognize that, and you can't and shouldn't crush him. Floyd Reese went to the Super Bowl. Floyd Reese went to another AFC championship game. John Hines, 8 years, didn't do that. And if Floyd Reese and Jeff Fisher spent 8 years of either making it to the wild card round and losing or never making the playoffs, Bud Adams would have fired them. They were in the year where they had to prove it. They went to the Super Bowl. I mean, that's how it is. Texter says, nobody owes you an explanation. The Predators don't need your permission. That's right, they don't. But they kept trying to tell me that Hines was a good coach. And Hines was not a good coach. And it's okay. It's okay to admit you're wrong, just like last year. My entire feeling toward the organization shifted when the Predators decided to sell at the trade deadline. Because it was like they were finally admitting the truth. What they didn't want to admit, they were finally doing it. And now they're on the right path. And I don't know if Andrew Burnett's going to work out. I hope it does. And I think this is a good hire. I was impressed by what he did with the Florida Panthers last year, and he finished second in the voting for the Jack Adams Award. But we don't know if it'll work out. We just kind of knew that the last guy wasn't going to. And it's okay. It's okay to admit that. It's okay to say, I screwed up. That what we thought was not the case. Because that's what it was. It just wasn't the case. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll wrap show up. And there's 2 things. A little potpourri, 2 big things. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Every Wednesday at 8:30. Come on. Join Robbie and Rexroad for The Choice is Yours.
2 sports questions, 2 non-sports questions.
They'll answer a couple of questions about life and sports. The Choice is Yours is built by Jarrett Companies. You have a choice. So when you have a need for site and utility work, fire protection, concrete and asphalt services, the choice is simple. It's Jarrett Companies. For more, visit JarrettCompaniesInc.com. The Choice is Yours. Wednesdays at 8:30 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
The Electronic Express Memorial Day sale is ending soon. Don't miss a Hisense 65-inch 4K TV for just $349 or a GE Profile laundry pair for $599 each. Electronic Express has huge savings in every department: computers, appliances, 4K TVs, smart home, furniture and mattresses, and more. Get an Acer gaming laptop for just $599 or a Sony Bluetooth speaker for only $39. Get up to 3 years free financing throughout the entire store. Electronic Express. We make it happen.
Music City will be rocking June 23rd through the 25th with a different sound, the sound of NASCAR.
Start your engine!
The Ally 400 is back at Nashville Superspeedway, and this year, it's a night race. NASCAR in Nashville. It's guitars and fast cars under the lights. Visit NashvilleSuperspeedway.com to get your tickets for the triple header weekend, including the Ally 400, Tennessee Lottery 250, and the Rackley Roofing 200 today.
Hey, Ray Jeter here with Harness. Are you looking to take ownership in a position that will support your growth and development? We are an excavation and site utilities contractor. Several things set us apart from our competition, but we take the most pride in the professional development of our people. We have multiple openings for operators, pipe layers, and laborers. Our pay and benefits are second to none, including our 401k program. Apply today at selectharness.com. Harness LLC. Build people, move dirt.
Time to save cash fast with the 102.5 The Game Deal of the Week. To celebrate National Barbecue Month, get a $30 gift card to Central Barbecue for half off right now, and then see them at their newest location in Hillsboro Village. Go to theGameNashville.com/deals and get that $30 gift card for only $15. Smoke is our sauce at Central Barbecue. Get them while they last at theGameNashville.com/deals.
Tuning into the baseball game, monitoring the incoming storm, catching your favorite talk show. These are just a few of the reasons more than 80 million Americans depend on AM radio each month. And did you know AM radio is the backbone of the emergency alert system, keeping us safe in dangerous times? It's reliable, free, and public safety depends on it. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress we need AM radio in cars. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Bon appetit. Take some Titans.
Derrick Henry.
Some Preds.
Roman Yossi.
Even some hoops.
Light fires. Wow.
Put it in a blender. And what do you have? Chase and Michelle.
Pretty incredible.
Call or text and weigh in.
The fastest 2 hours in sports radio. Weekday mornings at 9 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And the Game Nashville app. You're listening to Stillman and Company on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
I felt like with the way the team was going before David made that announcement, I felt like fan confidence in the team was at its lowest point since I've been here in 2015. So, just think about how quickly the narrative has changed since that announcement that David Poile was retiring. Think about what they did at the trade deadline, the haul they got for Tanner Jeannot, the second round pick they got for Mikael Granlund. All of the young players coming up and performing well in a tough spot. I think there's a lot for Predators fans to feel optimistic about. I heard a caller in your first hour say he hasn't been this excited since the Predators announced that David Poile was retiring, and I believe that was in February. So it does feel like for the first time in 4 or 5 years, the Predators have a clear, stated direction, and they're moving to that by any means necessary. Not this competitive rebuild thing, which felt half in and half out. The Predators are committed, it feels like, to doing what it takes to be good again, even if that means there are a couple of lean years in there. And I think just the fact that fans can actually say where this team is going and know where it's going is a positive that we haven't seen here in some time.
Yes, that was Adam Vingan earlier today. Again, the news. John Hines out, Andrew Brunette in. I will just say, if you are a Predators fan, you will want to listen to the station tomorrow all day, but especially in the middle of the day. And you will absolutely want to listen in the afternoons, but you'll want to be listening tomorrow on the program. I do have to thank the Predators for one thing. As a talk show host, if I may, Ian.
Please.
If I'm allowed to. Thank you for not hiring the coach this time during the Titans in the playoffs. Because the last time that they fired Laviolette on a Monday, the Titans beat the Patriots on a Saturday. And it set up the matchup with the Ravens in the 2020 playoffs, but at the end of the 2019 season. It set up the matchup with the Ravens. And so, when an NHL team is in the playoffs, it's when an NHL team, it's like addicting. It's the only thing anybody wants to talk about. Same with the NFL. And so the Titans are in the playoffs, and then all of a sudden Laviolette gets fired at 5 o'clock on a Monday, and it's like, whoa, so much for that win over Brady and Belichick. Then they hire a new coach, and yet we're talking about getting ready for the Ravens on Saturday night in the playoffs. And as a talk show host, that's when it's hard. People say to me things like, oh, during the summer, is it hard? No, it's my job. But when there's two equally important topics that are huge topics like that, it is hard to find the balance. This year, they did not do that in the middle of the playoffs, which I appreciate. And I want to thank them for that. And not only that, but I also think that, this is the right move. It's a new era. And you're starting a new era. He'll get a training camp. He'll get the developmental camp. All the things after the draft. It's his show. It should be his show. And on they go. But as a talk show host, I want to thank them for not doing this while the Titans are in the playoffs. Not that according to the power rankings or anything that they may have to worry about that this season as far as how people view the Titans. The second thing I want to touch on, the NCAA baseball regionals are out. Vanderbilt, congratulations to them, by the way, but they are hosting the 6th overall seed in the NCAA baseball tournament, Tim Corbin and co. They play on Friday night. And I know we're now partners with Vanderbilt, but you also know, just like with the Predators, that I root for the Predators, but, sometimes we don't always see eye to eye. I have to root against Vanderbilt this weekend, and I'm going to tell you why. And I think this should be fair. Even though we're new partners with Vandy, my college roommate is an assistant coach on Xavier's team. They are the 3 seed here. And so when that bracket dropped, and Xavier won the Big East, when that bracket dropped and I saw Xavier coming here, I was super excited. But I know people are going to be mad if you see me at the game this weekend in the Xavier section, and I will be in the Xavier section. I will be cheering for Xavier, and I hope they get out of this regional, even though Vanderbilt fans would be very upset about that. But it's my college roommate. And he's a good guy, and he's a good coach. And, it's not like if my son played on the team, but it's like one step away from that, right? Like if I got married today, I don't know how many groomsmen I would have to have. You'd have to count up how many bridesmaids and then go from there. But he'd probably be up there. I guess he wouldn't be because they'd be preparing for the NCAA baseball tournament. But so I just want to lay that out on the front end because I'm wanting to do the show. They play at noon on Friday, and then Vandy plays Friday night, and hopefully Xavier will win, and then Vandy will win, and then they'll play each other Saturday in the winner's bracket. I just want to prepare people ahead of time. I'm going to be rooting for Xavier this weekend, and I'm going to be in the Xavier section. And when they win on against Oregon, and then they end up playing Vandy in the winner's bracket, I'm going to be rooting for Xavier. So go Musketeers. I hope people can get over that. And I hope people don't just say, Jared's just he's the biggest hater there ever was. We got to support the college roommate. Congratulations, by the way, to Coach Corbin and Vanderbilt, to SEC champions. And congratulations to Xavier, Coach Wasserman, my guy, and the crew, Big East champions. And see a little baseball this weekend at Hawkins Field. Very exciting day today if you're a Predators fan. Very exciting day on this program tomorrow. I'll leave it at that. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.